It is 9:59. Good morning from the Superbook.com sports desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. A 44th minute goal from Hani Mukhtar was all Nashville Soccer Club needed to secure a 1-0 win over Seattle Sounders at Geodis Park on Wednesday. Some other results falling Nashville's way helped move them up to third in the Western Conference. NSC will remain at home to take on LAFC on Sunday. The Atlanta Braves could only win one of 3 games against the Mets this week at home, so they remain 2.5 games back of New York in the NL East. Keeping it in the division today, they travel to the Washington Nationals, a 6:20 first pitch. The first round of the Open is underway at St. Andrews. Cameron Young, the leader, he is obviously done at 8 under. Rory McIlroy second at 6 under. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once, and your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
All right, how about it? Welcome in on this Thursday. Hope you're feeling right, living well. Thirsty Thursday for those of you who celebrate. We got you for the next 3 hours here on 104.5 The Zone. We being Lucas Panzica, Robert Walsh, and myself until 1 o'clock. Not all 3 of us, but for the most part, that's how we're starting our day off today. 615-737-1045. Former Volunteers offensive lineman Thomas Edwards going to be in the house. We got some things to talk about. The work he and Josh Dobbs are doing as a part of this interesting concept he came in and told us about last time he was on, that they have their first event coming up, their first meetup. He's going to give us some details on that later on in the show. 615-737-1045. Jump in if you like. Lines are open all day long, but we got to start in the obvious place, gentlemen. By the way, good morning. Hello, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are we?
I'm getting there. How about you?
Getting there? Just getting there. It's 10 o'clock. If you haven't gotten there by now, you're probably not getting there, bud.
No, I ride at a low level all day of almost getting there. And then I subsequently get there at like 8:30 at night and then just go to bed and start all over again.
It's like a diabetic with an insulin spike. Like, what is that? Anyway, so we got to start in the obvious place. I saw this come across my timeline yesterday, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I know that not each and every one of you within the sound of my voice today are on social media. God bless you if you're not. It's a much more pleasant way to exist. But on occasion, you will miss out on opportunities to laugh at some of the dumbest things you've ever seen in your life if you do not have access to Twitter. So I saw this at about 3 o'clock, right at the start of 3HL. In fact, I was wildly jealous of 3HL that they were on the air and that we were not at the time that this came out. What I'm talking about is courtesy of the Backline SC on Twitter. Now, if you're unfamiliar, the Backline is what they call a supporters group for the Nashville Soccer Club, a collective of independent Nashville SC supporters groups standing as one. So, what is this? This is like the United Nations? Lucas, explain this to me. Now, listen, the supporters groups are cool, and we've been invited to tailgate with several of them, and we're hugely appreciative of that. But help me understand what exactly this Backline collective is.
So to understand it, you kind of have to realize that supporter groups are an integral part of soccer culture in Europe, South America, just around the world. And these are groups that have been instilled in the fabric of those clubs' fan bases for like literally over a century in many cases. So these supporter groups are independent of the club, but they often work in conjunction with the club because they often speak for a lot of fans of that particular club. So in the case of like a Liverpool, which, by the way, Nashville CEO Ian Ayer used to run, Liverpool supporter group leaders will occasionally have meetings with Liverpool leadership because there are logistical things that need to be sorted out. Again, these groups have been in place for literally over a century. So it's just a major part of the fabric of supporter culture in that sport around the world. And it has been brought to MLS when MLS started in the late 90s and obviously has increased over the years. So Nashville SC supporter groups, of which there are many, it's a very convoluted system, to be honest, which I don't quite understand.
Remember to breathe.
They've been around really since before the club was a USL team and obviously before the club was an MLS team.
Very good. So we have one of these. Now, they have penned an open letter to the aforementioned Ian Ayre and Nashville Soccer Club from the Backline Supporters Collective Board of Directors. What the hell is this? It starts with big and bold letters. We love our club. Thick and thin, win, lose, or draw, we back the boys in gold. To be clear, this is not about the players, and it is not about the on-field performance. It is also not about parking, tailgates, and signings. The member groups of the Backline Supporters Collective feel that the Nashville Soccer Club has consistently given supporters less communication and consideration than we are due. I add parenthetically, that's a hell of a sense of entitlement for a club that was playing at First Horizon like 4 years ago. It's not that long ago. Now, I appreciate fan passion. I'm not out here trying to urinate on it today. I'm really not. But like, I read this and in my mind's eye, all I heard and all I saw was sports executives around the country looking at this tweet and laughing amongst themselves, braying with laughter, uncontrolled, violent bouts of laughter, reading the rest of this statement. So, they believe they are due more consideration and more communication. The club consistently benefits from our passion, and we feel that passion is not returned in equal measure. Despite being the, quote, most passionate supporters that, quote, provide the soundtrack for the stadium, we are often last to know of any changes, opportunities, and events, including those that directly impact our members and the match day experience. Tonight, being last night, the member groups of the Backline Supporters Collective have chosen to not provide that soundtrack. We will not be staging drums and capos. We do not take this action lightly, and we want the boys in gold to know that we support them unequivocally. We have 4 requests of the club. Don't laugh yet. Not yet, Robert.
This reads like a mom's note to her family. Like, I'm not getting the respect around the house I deserve. No one's helping me with the dishes. I made dinner last night, and I love my boys. I do. But y'all are going to have to start picking up some of your damn toys.
Yeah, but you know what? In the case of the mom, she's right.
Probably, yeah.
You can't tell Robert not to laugh at things that are funny.
In the case of this, it sounds like a bunch of entitled children. We have 4 requests of the club. It goes on to state on page 2. There's 2 pages of this. They request quarterly meetings with club leadership, including Ian Ayre. These meetings have been part of our discussion since the founding of the Backline. We have made repeated requests for those meetings since the beginning of the current season, with no date set by the club. They're kind of busy. There's soccer season going on. In the middle of a World Cup bid. Like, what are you talking about? 2, I assume they mean advanced communication to SC leadership. It says SG. Somebody didn't proofread this.
No, SG stands for supporter group.
Damn it.
He wanted to stick it to him so
I thought I had the dagger, man. I thought I had it.
And just for the sake of accuracy.
Nothing hurts worse though when you catch somebody's grammatical error and you just stick them for.
No, advanced communication. They're asking to advance communication to supporter group leadership.
Okay, so it's just my bad.
It's all on your literacy skills.
That backfired quickly. Very good. Regardless, they want to advance communication to the supporters group leadership of event and pricing changes that impact supporters and priority purchasing options for our members. This includes, but is not limited to, parking, tailgate, ticket pricing, concessions, and non-soccer events. A fully functioning TIFO rigging system?
Yes. A TIFO is, if you watch a game in Europe or a lot of times in the U.S., those giant banners that you see developing over the giant supporter section a lot of times have a rigging system that is a more efficient way to display the banner. Tifo is short for the word tifoso, which means supporters in Italian.
So they want that. And a discount. Then this is the best one. This is the last one on the list. Tried to sneak it by me. A discount system for supporters at the in-stadium supporters bar. They said, give us free booze or we won't bring our drums to your soccer game.
I think the quarterly meetings with club leadership that's my personal favorite.
It's all, I almost cussed. We ask that the club respond to these requests by Saturday, July 16th. That's in 2 days from now at the time of this letter 3.
That's also an ultimatum.
Who the hell? Well, honestly, I respect the balls on this kind of because, like, who the hell do you think you are?
Yeah, so this kind of stemmed from, apparently it was frustrations from a few years, but I think the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, was changes made to Lot 1, where a lot of the supporters parked, and the tailgate spot that they usually set up, and they were very angry that they were not notified of these changes well in advance.
Get it in writing or tough. I mean, I have never in my life seen something this absurd. There have to be executives with the I'm sure this made it to the Nashville Soccer Club offices with just uproarious laughter.
Well, and they put out a statement shortly before the game saying
the soccer team?
No. The back line saying the club reached out, we'll have a meeting, we'll be back with drums in full force. And the environment was the same yesterday as it has been for any other game.
Right, because they won. They got off the schneid. Yeah. Turns out maybe this back line shouldn't show up.
They're not going to get free beer, though.
Or rather, discount. Let me be fair. They want discounted beer.
Look, they play a role, okay? They help with the environment.
Buddy, I don't give a bleep.
Hang on. The club benefits from their presence as far as the environment that they help provide. It is fair for them to want some communication from the club when it comes to logistical issues like parking and tailgating, getting in and out of the building with their drums and instruments, and et cetera.
Those things are fair.
But the club doesn't owe them anything. They are not club employees. They're not being forced to be there. The idea of unionizing like they did shows an absurd level of self-entitlement that I could not even begin to wrap my head around yesterday. It is the most overplayed hand in the history of Nashville sports.
Bravo. 615-737-1045. So we contracted Robert Walsh because Robert lives for things like this. You put together our show's list of demands. Now, who are we demanding this of? Are we demanding this of our employers? What does this list of demands consist of that you have provided for the show today?
So I've got a couple here, and it would be our employers. It's what we need to do our job. You want us here doing a good radio show? Then you're going to have to meet some of these demands, dang it. Where should I start at? All right, let me preface this first one by saying I'm a bathroom connoisseur. If you employ me, I will use every restroom at my disposal. That means upstairs, downstairs, outside, flower pot, porta potty. Doesn't matter to me. If I got to go, I'm going to try them all out and know which situation fits me the best.
So that was you on the security camera in the flower pot.
Oh, that's how. Okay.
That makes sense.
Okay, let me wrap these up real quick then. All right, so what my first demand is, I demand that the upstairs bathroom get an update to look like the downstairs bathroom. Because why the hell should sales get a bathroom that looks like a fine Italian restaurant and we have to use the bathroom in a high school gymnasium? Why does that make any sense? Help me out. They have bidets down there, Buck. Do you know what it's like to not have to wipe at work? It's amazing. Help me out.
Wait. I've never seen the downstairs bathroom. Is the downstairs bathroom that much nicer?
It's immaculate. It's the nicest work bathroom you've ever been in your entire life, Buck.
Oh, my God.
It's like 3-ply. The toilet paper's nicer down there. They get everything nicer, and I would like that for us.
On behalf of sales, they make us a lot of money, so I'm good with them having the nicer bathroom. But
give me a bidet.
Your point is well taken. Okay. I think that we should go round table with this. My demand that I would make is that I want Pellegrino sparkling water stocked in the studio mini fridge from now until the end of time. It needs to be refilled daily. I cannot just be relying on the good graces of Jason Martin to provide me the sparkling water that started here when I got here. When I got here, there was Pellegrino in the fridge. That was the expectation. That was the standard. Since then, no sparkling water. Instead, I'm going to schlep it down to the tap on a regular basis. It's not quite, what did you call it? A 17th century, Italian, whatever the hell bathroom?
Yeah.
What is this?
It's fine Italian dining. You go in their bathrooms and they have like statues and like busts
Fountains.
of
There's a
famous
waterfall.
people. Yeah, like the only water I'm concerned with is the bidet. To be honest, I don't need a water fixture in there, just one that shoots up. So,
Okay, very good. Lucas, what is on your list of demands today?
I demand a butler.
Apparently, he works in the downstairs bathroom. Wait, what do you want a butler for?
He hands out towels and hand sanitizer. You
In
just
the
put your
bathroom?
hand out.
he's got
Yes.
great mints.
Well, that's not a butler.
I demand a butler.
So wait, I mean, Brett, you've already kind of somebody. I don't know what Brett Batchelor does with his time other than sprinting back and forth down the hallways to hand me sheets of paper about Carolina Panthers quarterback stats. But I feel that you probably, you could probably work something out with Brett on the side. I don't know that may be demeaning. Perhaps HR would need to be called. But I mean, I guess this is technically like an on-air HR thing.
Yeah, I don't want to have to work it out. I just want a butler.
Robert, what is next on your list of demands?
I need lights. I need more lights in the studios, in the offices. I need them in every nook and cranny so Buck can no longer send me to the shadows. Every shadow dispelled from these studios because it's cold, it's dark, it's scary, and it's lonely, Buck. I need lights, and I need them now.
All right, back to the shadows.
Okay, do you know what the biggest irony of all this is? Is that they
You can't
demanded.
do the far away from the microphone thing when you're on camera, you dope.
Oh, am I on camera? I thought you were still doing the thing where I was in like the parts unknown.
The ultimate irony of all this is that they demanded more communication with the club when the majority of the members of this supporter group did not agree with this
No.
list of demands whatsoever.
That's the best part.
That is the best part. They did not communicate this in a good way to their supporters whatsoever because most of the people were like, this is a terrible idea.
I saw somebody on Twitter who is a part of one of the supporters sections. He was on Twitter last night and he said, "Oh, look, local media is finally talking about the soccer team." Oh, wait. Oh, no.
By the way, huge win last night. Huge 3 points against Seattle Sounders. One of their better performances of the season. Hani Mukhtar, his 11th goal of the year, continues his MVP candidacy. And Nashville is third in the Western Conference. After a couple weeks of bad form, they get back on track.
Second on my list of demands, I demand a trophy case. Not for this show. Not for this show. I demand a trophy case to hold all of 3HL's second, third place participation trophy, Captain D's Manager of the Year circa 2003. All of these things that populate this studio space, I demand a trophy case. 3HL has earned it. They are a staple in this market. They have been around in some form or fashion for the better part of like 20 years. Like it's straight up an institution. And so, in honor of my friends on 3HL and everyone who came before them, a trophy case to hold all of these second place golf trophies that populate our studio. Lucas, what is your final list of demands?
I demand tacos.
They're right here.
Oh, we got tacos.
Demands fulfilled.
Be there in a minute.
We won. Bravo. Well done. Except for the back line of Nashville SC. What the hell are you doing other than providing us an exceptional way to start a Thursday? Thomas Edwards going to keep this momentum going. That's coming up next. That's our guy, Thomas Edwards. This is a smash hit single, Be Around, Kids. Former Vols offensive lineman in studio with us now. But just don't pigeonhole him that way. It's an artist. This is a future superstar in the entertainment industry.
Oh, man. Come on, keep it coming.
And in his spare time, he does things with the guitar that make people happy. What's happening, big dog?
Hey, man, just living life, man.
Yeah.
One day at a time.
That's right. One day at a time. Now, you did some shows in Knoxville, right?
Yeah, I did it in Kingsport, my hometown.
Kingsport.
It went great, man. Biggest crowd the bar's ever had. Sold them out of beer. It was fun.
Sold them out of beer?
Yeah, I mean, they weren't. I guess they weren't ready for the wave of destruction. But it wasn't me. It was just the tenants of my show.
That's fine.
That's right.
That's completely right. Listen,
that.
that's drinking music, and you want to get the people going a little bit.
Yeah, that's right.
So to perform in that spot, we're going to talk about some cool things that Thomas is doing with Josh Dobbs. That we discussed a little bit, just kind of the concept, but now it's actually being implemented, and we're going to get into more detail in that here in just a second. But like to perform, because you're just up there with you guitar and a microphone.
Yeah, so I did a couple different sets. My parents are actually musical people. They have a bluegrass band in my hometown, so I did a set alone. I did a set with them, singing some bluegrass music and some music I grew up listening to and singing with my parents. And then I did a third set with a full band that also was a family friend band that was able to be there and kind of support me. And it was just a great time. A lot of people came out, and really, it's fun to play in your hometown because you can't be bad, You're like your elementary school. Like I saw my elementary school librarian in the crowd and went and talked to her. She said I did really good, As long as she thinks I did pretty good, that's all that really matters.
That's exactly right. Listen, those and the music is good. Like it's not just the elementary school librarian paying lip service to that. No, you're actually. I mean, not that you didn't know this, but you're like actually talented.
Hey, man, appreciate it.
That's exciting.
Sometimes I need that. I need those pats on the back.
I'm here for that. So before we get into some silliness that's happening in the world of sports right now, talk to me about the Smoky Mountain Club.
Yeah, no doubt. So we've actually just kind of started the wheels on the bus of the Smoky Mountain Club, and if you go onto our Twitter at Smoky Mountain Club, at Smoky Mountain Club, you can see. Oh, thank you, Liz. You can see a lot of the kind of the work that we've been doing. So, for example, we got some Twitter Spaces going where Dobbs and Aaron are hopping in with former players. Tonight, I'm doing one as well.
Josh Dobbs and Aaron Murray.
Yes. Yep. Sorry. So Josh Dobbs and Aaron Murray.
Sorry, I'm just being a cheesy broadcaster.
Hey, man, I need it. I need the cheese. Yeah, so just connecting like Dobbs and myself like tonight with a couple of the current players. Really, we got about 5 or 6 that are going to jump in there tonight. And just having the opportunity to sit down and just fans be able to raise their digital little hand and then answer the questions. And I think it's incredibly engaging, and it's really personal. And it's been really the past couple of weeks just seeing how it unfolds and seeing these chats in our Discord channel and with athletes across the country too. Like it's really exciting to see the work that we did in the back end kind of fold out and see the engagement building. So, I mean, the best thing we can do right now, or everybody listening to get more information about it, is go to that Smoky Mountain Club Twitter. And, that's where we're going to keep our updates. We're going to do giveaways. We're having tailgates. So, today we're talking about we'll be releasing a Tennessee versus a Florida ticket giveaway. So that's one of the things that you can enter to win in doing that. So just a lot of interesting stuff, all centered around getting fans, up close and personal with some of these athletes and what they do in their day-to-day life, and just using whether it's video calling or Twitter Spaces or just like text chat rooms. I mean, it's a really new opportunity, and it's playing out really well so far.
Thomas Edwards in studio with us. Again, the Twitter handle is at Smoky Mountain Club. MTN is how you abbreviate mountain. And we've just retweeted it from my Twitter account. Lucas, if you would be so kind as to retweet it from the Zone account as well, for people to get some more eyeballs on what they're doing. So in these Twitter Spaces, for people who aren't familiar, because Lucas and I, we run up against this all the time. We're generationally disconnected from a lot of people who may not be experiencing things like that. A Twitter Space, for those of you unfamiliar, on the Twitter website or app, you have the ability to host a live chat, essentially, a chat room. And so you can come in and out, you can request to speak, you can request to ask questions, and that's what Thomas and Josh Dobbs and Aaron Murray, who's been at the forefront of a lot of these things, not just for the University of Tennessee, but for programs around the country to do this so you can interact with Thomas, with Dobbs, with the players that are a part of these hangouts that they do on Twitter and Discord. And I'm personally unfamiliar with Discord. I don't know.
So it's just it's a chat room program, chat room app on your phone. You can get on your desktop. It's just really easy to access for voice chat, for all those things I mentioned earlier. It's kind of like the one-stop shop for all those. But I mean, shoot, man, we're over 50 players on the team of the football team that have signed to the Players Lounge now. So our goal is to get every single person signed on there, so every single person can just feel the benefits of NIL and,
Sure.
and feel the love of our fans, and it's just a really good opportunity for them. And even guys like, your long snappers, your walk-on kickers, everyone has a story to tell, and this is a great platform for them to not only, get compensated for it, but just get to practice, branding themselves in a world where that's incredibly important. So I'm really excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, their next one is coming up this evening, it would seem, based on what I'm seeing on social media. 7 p.m. Central Time?
Yep, that is correct.
7 p.m. Central Time at Smoky Mountain Club. You can follow Thomas as well to get updates on this at Big TP Edwards on Twitter and Instagram. So an example of one of these stories of a player that you guys have had on or as a part of the conversation that was not necessarily something that you knew, or maybe it was a path that you guys didn't think that you were going to go down, but the conversation organically landed in that place, and you felt like, wow, this is really an example of what we're trying to provide here in its best form.
Yeah, so I think a good example is last night in our Twitter space. When I interviewed all the players for the first round of our intro interviews, every single one of our players said Elijah Simmons is the best singer on the team. And last night in the Twitter spaces, that's some of the questions these fans are asking him about singing too. So a guy that's one of the biggest, most athletic guys, plus 300 plus pounds dunking a basketball, is also got the voice of an angel out there, and that's and that's what the fans want to hear about. So it's just a great opportunity to ask questions like that. It's personal, and you're asking them directly from the fan to the player. So I think that's a great example of what that was.
Lucas just got in my ear and said, I have audio of him sing. It's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Let me hear that big boy let it rip.
Right. Yeah, let it rip. It's beautiful.
No.
This guy is coming up the A gap and sacking the quarterback and singing this. Man.
Stop it.
That is Pearl Cone High School legend Elijah Simmons.
6'2", 340, big number 51, just out here belting it.
A monster in the trenches.
Dunking the basketball, singing that. I mean, firing off the ball, triple threat, man.
But this is why I think what the space is becoming is so cool, because I think the thing that sports fans want the most, I can't speak for everybody who's in the audience today, but I feel that people, for the vast majority of people, they want as much access as you're willing to give them.
Yeah.
That's been a big part of social media, and it's not like social media is anything new, but you've seen kind of more rapid evolutions of, okay, how can I do something rather than just typing out, who my favorite artist is. If Elijah Simmons is on Twitter and types out who his favorite artist is, now how can I kind of flesh that out a little more and learn about this dude who's obviously got some background in it? How did he discover that he could absolutely belt it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And things like that. That's been kind of the terrible things during the pandemic, of course, but how much faster digital media evolved in our space, not just our space, but across the board. I think that's been the coolest thing for me to see and, frankly, try and keep up with, because it's all changing so fast. And then, cool opportunities provided like this, what Thomas and Dobbs are doing with the Smoky Mountain Club.
Yeah, man. I'm super excited. I mean, just every day as we release more and more things and have more and more topics. I mean, the other night they got in the Discord channel and talked about dating as a college athlete. Talk about an untapped, really, storyline that anyone has ever heard.
So do they get into it? Because I'll just run this through my prism.
Yeah.
All right. When rookies come into the NFL, they are probably, I don't want to say bullied by the coaching staff to not say anything interesting to us ever, but there is strong messaging at team meetings. Don't you dare say a thing or we will cut your asses.
Yeah.
Right? So anytime I speak to them, and it's different because I'm the media guy, right? But, you try to loosen them up a little bit. You try to get into personality. Things like dating would be red flag. If I did that on the air, one, I would have all kinds of messages from Titans PR. And two, none of these players would ever speak to me again. But like in this setting with guys who they know have been in locker rooms and have been, you're one of the dudes, right? Or, in the case of whatever your sport may be, like you've been a part of what it is that they do. So they're more at ease. Do they like get into stuff that would otherwise be taboo or?
I mean, I don't. They're not getting on there and like soapboxing and complaining about stuff.
Yeah,
like they're explaining their the challenges of not having any time and having there definitely was a lot of people from different schools, including Tennessee, that were in there contributing to it. But they weren't spilling their own beans, though. I don't think.
I did a raw room space one time, and they were asking me all kinds of reckless questions. That's exactly what it reminded me of. Thomas Edwards hanging out in studio with us. You teased your appearance today on Instagram with one of the funnier pictures that I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's a wonderful picture.
Okay, so for the audience. Let's because not everybody may have heard Thomas's last appearance. Why don't you refresh what your connection is with Lyle Butch Jones?
Yeah, so I played 4 years of football at Tennessee under Coach Jones, and I love Tennessee so much. I can't speak a negative thing about it, regardless of anything. I love my experience, but that picture was me in circa 2015-16. Winning the Most Improved Player Award in spring football.
Excellent.
Being presented to me by Coach Butch Jones. So it's a good relic.
It is, one, this happens to all offensive linemen. It's outrageously unhealthy how much weight they ask you to keep on your bodies throughout the course of a season because you look fantastic compared to this, baby fat picture that I'm seeing in front of me.
It's just the beard, man. The beard covers it all up.
What do you mean, Jesus? We have made a summer out of fat shaming me on the internet.
Oh yeah, that's fine with me.
It's not even fat shaming. Baby fat is not fat shaming.
Yeah. And as long as I'm skinnier now, it's fine.
No, it was a compliment.
You look great.
Hey, thanks, man.
He does look great.
Thank you, Lucas.
What are you doing back there? Don't try to protect him. He's a big boy.
Just be nice, Buck.
What, are you worried he's not going to come back? Thomas is our friend.
I'll come back.
But, there are so many questions that I have about the Butch experience because I understand, like, Butch or anybody in a position like that at a program like Tennessee, they give you the opportunity, especially coming from Kingsport. Like, that's a massive deal. Mm-hmm. You become folk legend in your hometown as soon as that happens, right? Because you're running through the power T. But when I go through these different, like, I miss him so much, Thomas, just because of the ridiculous quotes.
Yeah.
Because of the 5-star, the 5-star hearts, the champions of life. Mm-hmm. It was, without this man saying an interesting thing at all throughout the course of his career, I could run Butch Jones highlights on a reel and do 3 hours of radio.
Yeah, and I think that was his gig. He's the guy that wants to be the motivational guy, and I think that, when I was at UT, I didn't really understand all this stuff that was, these motivational life-building quotes that were being put in front of us. But now as I kind of unpack them slowly, that I'm a couple years out of college, a lot of the times he was right.
Yeah. Like your parents kind of.
Yeah, it's right. It's like when you're in there, you're rolling your eyes. It's like, we got another world-class speaker coming to talk to us today. And you don't really think, we got guys like David Goggins and Inky Johnson and all these guys coming back and talking to us. And Coach Jones really saw the value of that, and that's one thing that, like, when I was in school, I didn't really see the value of it, but now I just find myself picturing the things that he was saying and repeating from those guys. So, I think he had a lot to say. He definitely had a lot to say for quotes. I think we have we had a composition notebook that was just like pages and pages and pages of lines that he said, and if someone,
you guys like kept a record?
Yeah. If someone could find that right now, it would be the funniest thing. I'm going to go on a mission to find that.
It would sell.
Yeah.
I would buy it.
Oh, man.
I would frame that in my home.
It's great stuff. It's great stuff.
Thomas Edwards hanging out with us in studio. So, again, the Smoky Mountain Club, they're hosting another Twitter live space this evening. You're going to be a part of it?
Yep, I'll be on there.
You're going to be a part of it. Who are the players that you're having on tonight?
Oh, we got like 6 guys, and there's more coming. It's going to be a handful of guys tonight.
Okay, but anybody in particular that I can tease for the
audience? We got.
I can stall. I'm a professional.
Okay, yeah, go ahead and stall real quick. Stall.
So yes, Josh Dobbs and Thomas Edwards are putting on this Twitter live space as a part of the Smoky Mountain Club. It's a regularly recurring series as a larger part of the Players Lounge, which is basically to engage fans of respective college football programs across the country with the players currently on the team.
Yeah, great work, Buck.
I told you.
Come on, man.
I'm here for 3 hours a day.
So tonight we got Jason Jenkins, Latrell Bumpus, Noah Young, Austin Lewis, and Josh Helsden. All sorts of different backgrounds, sorts of different starters, not starters, offense, defense, special teams. So really, I think this is an opportunity to kind of get everyone up to the mic and, get those opinions out to everyone. So it's going to be fun.
At Smoky Mountain Club is where you can follow it so you can make sure that you don't miss their notification when they go live. Again, it's Smoky MTN Club on Twitter. Thomas Edwards, always a pleasure, big man.
Hey, great pleasure to see you.
I'll be in it tonight. I hope to see many of you in there. Buddy, I look forward to seeing how you kind of, you kind of do a little bit of the media thing.
Yeah, I know, man.
I'm for my job.
I'm stepping in your lane.
Well, listen, my lane is easily occupied. Turns out every time I look around, there's somebody more talented trying to sneak into my lane. So it's just a matter of time before it comes forward.
Wait. So are we out of time already here, Buck?
No, not necessarily.
So I know you guys were talking about demands earlier.
Oh, do you have a list of demands?
Yeah, I went ahead and just made my own list of demands.
What are you demanding, and who are you demanding this of?
So there's a couple, and they're different audiences. There's restaurants, golf organizations, NASA.
All right, give me your best off the top. Who are we making this demand of, courtesy of Thomas Edwards?
Okay, so this demand is just to anyone that's planning a wedding in the summer. I demand that you not require a suit in the summer.
Yes,
it is the most ridiculous request, especially when they go ahead and type that black tie on that event. Like, not only do I have to wear a suit, I have to get a tuxedo and then sweat in that tuxedo then wad it up into a ball, put it in the suit bag, and take it back to a tuxedo store.
And they say, what is this? What is this you've just brought back?
And I just go, I don't know. So that's one of my biggest demands.
Summer weddings, those are the only weddings I can actually go to because football season is a misery.
Yeah. Better than fall weddings.
They are unequivocally better than fall weddings. But Thomas is, you're 6'5". I'm not going to ask you your weight. That's him. That would be impolite, Lucas.
Way to go, he's learning.
Yeah, etiquette. But you're a larger than average human being.
Yes,
I'm not quite that.
Nightmare on an airplane.
Well, that. Hell, I'm 6'2". You don't want to sit next to me on an airplane. But listen, for those of us who are of above average size in some form or fashion, please do us the courtesy of not requiring suits at your summer wedding. It's been 100 degrees for 15 days in Middle Tennessee. I'm trying not to pass out and have a heat stroke. What is your second organization that you are demanding something of?
I think so. Chipotle, the restaurant Chipotle.
I'm aware. Wait. Does Chipotle sponsor anything around here, Lucas?
Oh, I love Chipotle.
Okay.
I love Chipotle.
Okay,
this is positive. This is positive. This is
we did this with AJ Brown already.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's just, I always want to be careful.
Yeah. I think this is a very popular opinion. I think that they just got to, reset their rules on how much of the vinaigrette they make at the beginning of the day because they have this wonderful vinaigrette that's intended for the salads, a low velocity menu item. Mm-hmm. But if you get that and put it on your bowl, man, next level. But guess what? It's always out. It's never in stock.
So this is like the bakery that makes donuts in the morning but doesn't make any donuts the rest of the day.
That's right.
It's done.
It's right. And it's almost like a first come, first serve to get vinaigrette. So I'm going to Chipotle at 10:30 a.m. because I want the vinaigrette.
A burrito bowl and black beans before lunch.
It's brunch.
I'll be honest, Chipotle, I haven't gone since AJ had that intestinal issue. That kind of scared me off of it for a while. I wasn't a big Chipotle consumer anyway. I mean, I'm sure they're lovely, but I'll take your word for it. All right, third and final demand being made by Thomas Edwards, VFL, recording artist and, multimedia extraordinaire at this point.
Hey, man, come on. Keep patting me on the back.
I got you.
This one might be a little controversial, but it's fine. Not bad controversial. I am demanding NASA to show me aliens and not pictures of desktop backgrounds.
We haven't talked about that desktop backgrounds.
And I mean, I'm just saying.
That's 500 million light years worth of universes, and he just called it a desktop.
Yeah. Guess what? The last telescope that we had up there, it took one. It was just a little dimmer. But now you got one that's a little brighter. In 5 years, we're gonna have one that's just gonna be a little more stars.
You want aliens?
Do you understand how big a deal that was the other day?
Yeah.
Like, Biden had to consult different religious leaders to make sure that he wasn't going to shake anybody's world up when he said, yeah, we're basically the size of a grain of sand based on these pictures of the actual universe.
Yeah, and those pictures are an interpretation of radio waves. So it's not like you just got your phone and took out a picture. So I mean, something interpreted them. So
Yeah.
So I mean, you can call me a hater all you want. Come on. I just want to see aliens. I have nothing against these pictures. I think they're wonderful.
They
But
are.
they're miraculous pictures. But I've just seen them. I've seen them all.
But he said, show me an alien. He wants to be Will Smith at Independence Day cutting one of these, I can't say the word on FCC radio, cutting them out of a UFO. Do you also demand that UFOs be saucer-shaped?
No, I think UFOs have the freedom to be whatever shape they want to be.
That's very progressive of you. Thomas Edwards, at Big TP Edwards, is where you follow him. Thanks, bud.
Thank you.
What the hell are we doing next?
N'Keal Harry.
All right, let's talk about N'Keal Harry. Well, that was fun. I think we should have Thomas Edwards in as often as he's willing to lend us his time.
Talented dude.
Well, and those conversations are going to be interesting for Vols fans, so make sure you're keeping an eye out for the Smoky Mountain Club. So I'm sure you're going to see a lot more of that coming down the pike. So there was a trade in the NFL that, I mean, of consequence is not how I would describe this, but it did catch my attention for one reason in particular. So in 2019, in the NFL draft that was here in Nashville, there was what was regarded as one of the, it wasn't regarded as a quality wide receiver class, which is kind of nuts when you go back and look at some of the players that came out in 2019 and some of the guys who weren't high draft picks or first round picks even. But in looking at the wide receivers that were coming out, the Patriots had a first round pick that they spent on N'Keal Harry. N'Keal Harry, the wide receiver who had a lot of talent, who I watched a lot of in the pre-draft process prior to him coming out. And I was at the combine because that was the DK Metcalf combine where everybody and their mother and brother was freaking out about 3-cone drills for DK when I'm looking at him and I'm like, this is a Greek god that plays football. You idiots. Stop with the 3-cone. Anyway. So N'Keal Harry is 24 years old, and they just shipped him off. It's like the first. Is it the first round wide receiver Bill Belichick has ever taken?
Yes, and I think the only, right? Like you can't name another.
No,
one.
that's what I'm saying. I think that's the only time he's done it.
Mm-hmm.
And Bill Belichick, for all of his football acumen, they butcher wide receivers. Like there is consistently talent deficiency around the quarterback in New England, which is
so weird.
The thing that drove Brady crazy.
It's
right?
like Saban and kickers over the years.
Sure.
Like just an unexplained phenomenon for the greatest coaches of all time.
Everybody's got a blind spot, right? For Bill Belichick, it's wide receiver.
That's a pretty important blind spot. And to win a bunch of Super Bowls with that blind spot is pretty impressive.
Well, if you've got Bill is a good coach on nearly every other surface. But yeah, the wide receiver issue, and if it loses you, Brady, because he's pissy at the end because everybody else is getting all the best wide receivers in free agency, and he's out there with 84-year-old Benjamin Watson on his second Patriots stint. That's a playoff game. Ben Watson played in a playoff game against the Titans and was the top receiving option. I believe he was 45 years old. So anyway, so they get rid of N'Keal Harry yesterday. They sent him to the Bears for a 2024 7th-round pick. So that's not even this year's draft. Next year's draft, a 7th rounder in next year's draft, which is the same compensation that the Tennessee Titans sent away Isaiah Wilson for and got in return from the Miami Dolphins. N'Keal Harry just got shipped off for the Isaiah Wilson package as a first-round pick at wide receiver that has played considerably more football and has obviously not been, all kind of problematic the way that Isaiah was here. But the whole Patriots structure since Tom left has felt so perilously thin. It just feels House of Cards-ish. You're out here screwing around with first-round picks on wide receivers who ultimately can't play.
What do you think his career high in the 3 years at the Patriots is in yards?
You're a single season?
A single season.
How many receiving yards N'Keal Harry had in a year?
Yeah, the highest he had in 3 years in New England.
I'll say 750.
Oh, buddy. 309.
What?
309 with a pair of touchdowns in 2020.
You're kidding.
Yeah, he started 4 games last season, played in 12. He caught 12 passes for 184 yards.
So they hate him.
No touchdowns.
What on earth? I didn't realize that it was that kind of bad. And by the way, I don't think it makes the Bears much better. For the Bears, it's a no-lose proposition because their wide receiver core stinks anyway. Respectfully to Velus Jones Jr.
He's younger than Velus Jones Jr. Been in the league 3 years.
Well, Velus Jones Jr. is, again, speaking of 45-year-olds, Velus Jones Jr. is like a 30-year-old rookie. I think he's actually 25.
He's 25.
But still. Yeah, I found it interesting to see that kind of compensation and just to kind of, keep an eye on the Patriots who get mentioned as, if Mac Jones takes another step. I watched Mac throw for his career high, I mean, his single season high, because it was the first year of his career, obviously, against the Tennessee Titans. Like, he had his best single statistical performance at home against Tennessee, or whatever that was out on the field that was supposed to be the Tennessee Titans by the time that game came around, because half the squad was on IR and there were all kinds of other issues. So, and Mac is not a bad player, but Mac is not transcendent talent. Like, I think Mac is probably closer to Jimmy Garoppolo than he is Tom Brady, just in terms of skill set. I think it's a functional quarterback. I think he moves well in the pocket, but I mean, I don't expect him to be able to elevate Jonnu Smith beyond what we've seen if Jonnu's going to continue to have issues like that. The Patriots in the AFC East, man, where did they finish last year in that division? No, they made the playoffs. They made the playoffs.
They lost in Buffalo.
Right. They made the playoffs, so it's not like they were outright.
So they finished second in the division.
Okay. But, like, I mean, I feel better about it, which is just wild to say. I feel concretely better about the Miami Dolphins this year in the AFC East than I do about the New England Patriots.
No, I think I do too.
What the hell is that?
Yeah.
That happened fast.
I really like the Dolphins roster. It's just if Tua can tie it together.
Yeah, no, I do like everything on the roster except the quarterback.
Yeah.
I'm not there for the quarterback. 615-737-1045. Jake is in Boston. What's up, Jake?
Buck, happy Thursday. One day closer to the tequila sodas.
Indeed.
Did you guys do the Lamar Jackson tweet storm yet?
No, we have not talked. We had intended to talk about Lamar Jackson dragging former Titan safety Bernard Pollard across the surface of the sun, but it has not made the show yet.
Cool. So for context, right, Lamar Jackson did like a 10-thing tweet storm dragging Bernard Pollard last night, as you alluded to. Got me thinking. Those type of tweet storms are way better than one-offs, and I am now publicly advocating on your radio show for any present or former Titan to do that to Karski at some point this year. I think that would be delightful.
Buddy, I think it happens every season. Like, there'll be one instance in the locker room where it just turns into, whether it's subtweeting or actively dragging our buddy the Chief. Yeah, it does, especially now that we have locker room access back. Because Darren Bates is gone, Wesley Woodyard is gone. I don't know who might actually take a swing at him anymore.
Who's going to play the music?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know who plays the music anymore. I haven't been in the locker room in 3 years. 3 years. It's crazy to think about. Anyway, we can touch on this. This story is pretty funny, and since Pollard played and then quit on the Titans, it is worth bringing up from a local standpoint. Josh Pate, the future commissioner of college football, Late Kick's own, will be in studio as well. A lot to talk about in the world of football on this Thursday. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
It is 11:02. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Open Championship first round continues from St. Andrews, and Cameron Young atop the leaderboard as he is done for the day at 8 under. Rory McIlroy 2 strokes back at 6 under, with Cameron Smith in third right now at 5 under. The Atlanta Braves take on the Washington Nationals today, a 6:20 first pitch. Braves dropped 2 out of the 3 against the Mets this week. They are still 2.5 games back of New York at the top of the NL East. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
What's happening? Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back. If you've been spending your Thursday morning with us so far, you can jump in to the show if you like. 615-737-1045 is how you do so. 615-737-1045. Josh Pate, Late Kick Live's own, going to be in studio here in just about 15 minutes. Always enjoy Pate's presence around here. He's been fat-shaming me on the internet. In his defense, I asked him to. But we're going to talk about more important things like, actual college football. Kind of flesh out our conversation yesterday about the Power 5 conference most wide open as it relates to the schools that are going to be competing for the title in college football this year. So we'll get to that later on here shortly. But in keeping with the theme of college football, Big 12 Media Days, the first of the Power 5 Media Days to get up and rolling. That started yesterday. We played you some audio of Brett Yormark, their new commissioner, even though he's not technically on the job for, about 16, 17 more days.
August 1st, he is still technically a Jay-Z employee.
Okay. So until then, the commissioner of the Big 12 will continue to stay employed by Hove. But looking at Big 12 Media Days, Lucas gets excited for SEC Media Days. I'm not unexcited for SEC Media Days, but I also choose to take my vacation around them. And I know that 3HL is going to have incredible coverage down there courtesy of Brentwood Hearing Center. They're going to Atlanta, I believe, on Monday, if I'm not mistaken, and they'll be down there for, I think, 3 or 4 days. But in thinking about it, I started to see some of the clips of the coaches come out, and I was struck. I was struck by the idea that Lucas had told me a couple of weeks ago, maybe sometime last week, that I am jaded when it comes to coaching press conferences. That Mike Vrabel has worn me so down as far as what we're going to get out of media availabilities that I'm not actually listening to coaches anymore, which may honestly be fair criticism. Now, Mike does provide information in press conferences from time to time, but a lot of times wear you down with things like, today Jeff Simmons is unavailable. Well, what do you mean? He's sitting there on a bike. He's here. He looks great. Just did some pass rush drills with Von Miller. Unavailable. All right, we'll keep it moving. So there's so much of those that sometimes you lose track of the times when they actually say things. Now, in college football, that's not really the case. Like, college football coaches are comfortable getting up there and saying whatever the hell they want. It's why I think Urban Meyer was never going to work out in the pros, because Urban Meyer's been used to running Columbus, Ohio, or Gainesville, Florida, as basically a demigod, a college football coach at one of the biggest or two of the biggest programs in the country, and not being, not being made that available to the media, and two, thinking that he can speak fairly transparently, because that's what college coaches do. And then all of a sudden I saw Mike Gundy, and Mike Gundy, while Mike Gundy has had some missteps in the last couple of years, had him playing high level football last year, and even though they lost ultimately in the title game, they were having success throughout the course of the season. Dave Aranda and Baylor doing a good job to it was a really well played football game, and not the way that you would expect a Big 12 title game to be played. But Mike Gundy's at the podium. And what's Mike Gundy want to do? Well, he wants to take a shot at Oklahoma, which always makes me happy.
You folks that in Stillwater. Think about Oklahoma's move to the SEC. How has that affected your recruiting with an SEC school trying to recruit the same players you want to go after? And what do you envision of the future of Bedlam going forward?
Well, the future in Bedlam is a year or two left. I mean, that's the future of Bedlam, based on somebody else's decision. Recruiting for us hasn't really changed a lot. You know, it's interesting with young people now. I'm not sure. You might be able to take a poll of the top 250, 300 recruits in the country and ask them if they know. For example, you could throw out what conference is Purdue in or what conference is Wake Forest in. And I would say there's about a 50% chance they might not even know what the conference is. Young people live in certain worlds today, and essentially they want to know what you as a university and athletic department, as a football team and a coach, can do for them. That's what they're interested in. So other than that, our recruiting hasn't really changed since the conference realignment.
Wait, that last part. What did you hear that? Did that catch you a certain kind of way? Nowadays, kids are interested in what a program can do for them. Shouldn't that have always been the priority? Am I missing something here? What am I making something out of nothing? Like, that struck me funny. Like, that made me lose track of the whole idea of Mike Gundy taking shots at Oklahoma for leaving.
Yeah, and he went on to say that Oklahoma and Texas shouldn't be allowed in Big 12 meetings if they do not want to be part of the Big 12 in the future.
Which is, petty and the kind of things that you look forward to out of media days at this time of year. And then it got me thinking about the SEC, because I don't know necessarily what to expect this year. Now, last July at about this time, we had the news of Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC as SEC Media Days was getting ready to kick up in earnest. Or I think while SEC Media Days was going on.
It leaked during Media Days.
In the middle of it. So you have this nuclear news story that goes off in the middle of the conference. The conference's Media Days, when there's never going to be there's never going to be a more condensed media core only there to cover and talk about SEC football, the future of SEC football, and everything to do with SEC football. So it's fair to expect that didn't necessarily get leaked out of Commissioner Greg Sankey's office. But this year, having been through now a year of name, image, and likeness, Saban and Jimbo, all the different faces, and there's always coaching turnover. But now with Billy Napier and Brian Kelly being thrown into the mix, I have no idea what to expect out of Brian Kelly. I don't know who the most entertaining or who I want to hear from the most. Who I want to hear from the most is probably Josh Heupel, because, we obviously have a local bent here. This is the Vol. We have the Vols network on the airwaves here at 104.5 The Zone, and the vast majority of you are Vols fans. So, yeah, I'm probably most interested in what Josh Heupel actually has to say about the football program and how they're recruiting and what the outlook for the season looks like and all these different things. But as far as entertainment value, I'm kind of torn. I'm kind of torn between Saban, Jimbo, and Brian Kelly. And I think for all manner of different reasons. I think Brian Kelly's press conferences at SEC Media Days are going to be entertaining, but not because Brian Kelly is entertaining, but because Brian Kelly is going to have another moment where he tries to fake a Southern accent or does a TikTok dance with a recruit.
I doubt it.
What do you mean?
I think he's done with the Southern accent stuff. He doesn't need to appeal to LSU fans anymore, the way that he's recruiting.
Well, yeah, LSU is. Brian Kelly never had a problem recruiting. Like he had made subtle comments about, and sometimes not so subtle, about the academic restrictions that Notre Dame has, or the academic standards that places like Notre Dame or Vanderbilt or Stanford or Duke have for student athletes that would potentially restrict the kind of athletes that Brian Kelly wants or helps or makes him think that he can actually win a national title as opposed to just getting blown out in a playoff game. And maybe he's right. So you think just by nature of this recruiting cycle, Brian Kelly doesn't have to warm up to LSU fans anymore.
No, that was the first time he was meeting LSU fans at a basketball game in the immediate aftermath of him getting hired. And no, I'm sure he will just have his regular coach speak I don't know that Brian Kelly will say anything inflammatory or funny at media days.
I feel a misstep coming. And Brian Kelly, I don't know why those things happen or when Brian Kelly goes viral for the wrong reasons. Maybe he's doing it on purpose. I don't know. Recruiting is a different game today. And if you have no shame on the internet, then good on you. Do the TikTok dances with the commit who's going to end up at Alabama anyway, which by far and away was the funniest Brian Kelly maybe misstep so far since he's been the LSU coach. Tighten Up Dracaris, I always struggle with that one, on YouTube, says Mike Leach is who he is most looking forward to hearing from at SEC Media Days. I don't care about Mississippi State like that.
When it comes to conference realignment, I don't think there's anybody I'm more looking forward to hearing from than Mike Leach, just as from pure entertainment.
You think he's going to wax poetic about it?
He'll have something for it. I know that. I don't know if it's going to be some sort of metaphor. I don't know. It's Mike Leach. He's very unpredictable. Mississippi State, you're right, is not a very fascinating narrative going into 2022, but I don't care about what Mississippi State has. I know what they're bringing back on offense. I know that they hope to take a step forward and try to stay out of the cellar of the SEC West. I want to hear what Mike Leach has to say on conference realignment, though, as the former head coach at Washington State and Texas Tech. Two of the programs, by the way, which we continue to bring up as the ones that could be getting left in the dust in this.
I want to hear what Josh Pate has to say about all this and some actual football discussion. Which Power 5 conference is the most wide open for a program to be able to win in 2022? We're going to talk about that with Josh Pate and this egregious Pro Football Focus top 10 college quarterbacks list that was put out yesterday. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
The Buck Rising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Visit springhillac.com.
You're damn right it is. Just like Late Kick Live is powered officially by Academy Sports. Josh Pate, Late Kick Live, available wherever you get your podcast. Check out the Late Kick YouTube channel. No longer 24/7 sports, just Late Kick Live. He's in studio with us, the future commissioner of college football himself. Hey, bud.
Can we clip this? Not from my own vanity, but really helps improve for performance with Academy if they find out I get them shout-outs on other networks. So, yeah, let's clip this for individual use. And also, Buck, it's good to see you.
It's lovely to see you, my friend. Congratulations on everything that's happening with the show. We're very, very happy for you. And listen, you deserve all of the credit that you have gotten over the last couple of days about this, because I know that you work your ass off to make sure that the product that you have is a compelling one, not just during the college football season, but talking football at some point all year round is not easy to do, but it's exactly what people want, and that's why they love Late Kick.
Let's just toss this out here. I appreciate everything you just said.
Mm-hmm.
People say that a lot. I guess if you graduated college and then you went straight into radio or television and you just work your way up in the industry, it does feel like what I do is grinding really hard work. But I didn't take that route. I did not even graduate college immediately. I thought it was better to go into heating and air conditioning business, go work on roofs in the summer in Georgia for a living.
Oh, well.
And so I did that.
That's a tough scene. By the way, we love our friends at Spring Hill AC.
Absolutely. Shockingly, though, I was not cut out for that line of work.
Yeah.
So then I went into fabric. And not let me bore you with those details, but fabric didn't work out for me either. Anyway, I say all that to say this. I used to listen to talk radio all day thinking those fools have the cushiest job in the world. So,
we do, by the way. We absolutely, let me not lie to you. I have the best job in the world. If I ever bitch about anything, you need to run me out of town 1,000%, which is going to happen probably in the next segment.
Did you try tree work?
I did not try tree work, but it was probably next on the list.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I'm sitting there thinking the whole time, boy, if I could ever do that, your life would be made. So now I get to do it. And make no mistake, life is made. So when people say, oh, this guy just grinds his you-know-what off, I always fail to make eye contact with him because it's kind of BS. It's a lot of work, but it's fun. It's what I would do if I wasn't. It's what I used to do on my lunch break. This is what I did at 5:01 p.m. So, yeah, it's not all that hard.
Buck could learn some lessons from this, by the way.
We're going to clip this, too.
Hey!
Yeah.
Whose side are you on? What's wrong with you?
Mine. You're always talking. Oh man, I got to watch the college football playoff. I'm not going to watch the college football playoff.
No, don't do that in front of Josh Pate.
What am I going to watch football for when I'm not working?
Don't do that. Just don't do that in front of him.
Well, just generally, my issue with the college football playoff resides exclusively with the fact that it's on New Year's damn Eve.
Okay.
All right? There is a policy on Late Kick for those of you who are familiar, and if you're not, you need to get familiar in a hurry. By the way, they've also got a merch store coming. These T-shirt concepts are incredible. I'm probably going to pop in here on a Late Kick shirt at some point in the near future. But
it's just going to be a white T-shirt.
That's all it is. You've already got him. You don't even know it.
That's where the fabric industry comes in. Look at that. Personal experience. Maybe we'll find him enough fabric to cover the guns one day. My issue with the college football playoff is, one, I am not a casual because I work in the business. But two, I am not going to have my damn New Year's Eve, especially when the Titans play a Thursday night football game, and I have New Year's Eve to be able to celebrate for the first time in quite some time without a football game around it. Not that the football game is not a celebration itself. My girlfriend does not think it is. My issue with the college football playoff resides exclusively with the stupidity of that it is on New Year's Eve.
What I appreciate is you've got a unique ability, and I mean an uncanny unique ability to make the entire thing about yourself, and I appreciate that. I appreciate not everybody can do that. The level of selfishness and vapidity that it requires to get into that train of thought.
It's really special, man.
You don't teach that. You're born with that.
Oh, no, it's something that's deep, deep down in. Well, it's not even that deep. It's basically, you just heard it. It's surface level.
But
baby.
let me tell you, you're right. So I remember a few years back, Michigan State played Bama in the Cotton Bowl. It was a New Year's Eve playoff game. And I am walking out of AT&T Stadium in Arlington. And this is how zoned in I was.
Yeah.
Hard working and all. I'm in the parking lot. We're on Central Time there. So the game ended. And it was like, I think, the early game. So the game ended. I'm leaving hours afterwards. All of a sudden, Dallas just starts going crazy. And there, you could hear gunshots and fireworks, not necessarily in that order, but both are happening. And folks are going insane, blowing their horns. And I realized it was the stroke of midnight.
It's New Year's Eve.
I'd lost all concept of time.
Yeah, it was a blowout,
I was
too.
in that building, and it was a different year than when I'm going to get in my car. What are we doing with the scheduling? I remember at that point I said, Buck's going to say this 6 years down the road, and you know what? He's right. He's right about it all.
It can be self-involved, but also be very true.
I want to find the score to that game.
The score to that, it was a blowout.
It was a splattering, as we like to call it. Yeah.
Which, does tend to, at least there is a frequent enough sample size of it happening in the college football playoff. But again, these are issues for another day. We are here to talk about actual football with Josh Pate for the first time, I think, in 3 months.
Gasp.
38-0, by the way.
Oof.
And it really wasn't that close now. Don't let him fool you. It was not that close.
So, Big 12 Media Days are underway. SEC Media Days will begin next week. We're starting to get ramped up officially. It's talking season and all the fun that comes along with it. But in a discussion that actually revolves around football, Lucas contends that the most wide open of the Power 5 conferences is the Big 12 this year. I think, even as Clemson has such superior talent available to them, I think it's the ACC. Is there a conference to you that jumps out? Because we know what the SEC is. We know likely what is going to be the outcome in the Big 10. So of the remaining three, which of those strikes you as the most wide open for competition? Because Pac-12 is interesting with some teams this year, too.
You don't have to say that. They're not listening.
I think Utah. Listen, I'm a Utah stan.
Are you sitting up watching Utah? You really are?
I root for Utah when they play in games that are on television at the time that I'm awake.
That's how he says no.
Okay, so I got that answer out of the way. Now let's talk about teams east of the Rockies.
So fair. Damn it.
I want to know what you trust more. Do you trust when you pull up that big odds sheet and you see the top 4 preseason favorites, or do you trust your eyeballs, your gut, your absent preseason magazine dysphoria, if you will?
I would say that I probably make my own judgments and that I use those other things for the purposes of conversation around here.
Okay, it's fair to say the ACC then. The preseason odds makers would have you believe Clemson's one of the 4 favorites to make the playoff. So they're just telling you, forget everything, take like the Etch-a-Sketch, move it from a left to right, nothing last year matters. Either DJ Uiagalelei is going to just magically fulfill his 5-star potential this year, or this other 5-star kid named Cade Klubnik could come off the bench. I think let's talk about that again in a second, because that's going to be really fascinating week 1. But they are of the opinion that's going to happen. If that's true, no, the ACC is not wide open. It's kind of open and closed. In that case, it would be the Big 12. Now, I would slightly lean probably like 65-35 towards the Big 12 anyway, because I don't think even from a developed roster standpoint, there's not an alpha dog in that conference. And if there is, it's Oklahoma, not Texas. And if it's Oklahoma, they've got brand new everything.
Right.
Including quarterback.
Coach, quarterback.
Yeah.
Dylan Gabriel is we know him to be hugely talented, but it's a wild card situation.
And so what's fun out there is obviously the Texas factor. But also, did you know this time last year, Baylor, who went on to win the conference title, had the second to worst odds to win the title in the conference?
I did know that only because they mentioned it on the broadcast of the Big 12 title game.
So that's how crazy it was last year. Like a team like TCU, I think, has the 6th longest odds this year. It wouldn't even be as crazy as last year. So I would lean slightly Big 12. I don't know. See, the Texas factor this year is such that, like most years, people have made the mistake of thinking, oh, all these Texas teams are the same. They're all really talented. They all underachieve. The Texas teams of about the past 5 years had what I call Red Bull factor about it.
Okay.
They've got, when we assemble, I don't do it personally, but when our company assign recruiting rankings and you look at the team rankings, I've always said I could sign 25 5-star receivers and have the number 1 class in the country, but you'd run over me on Saturday. I don't have any line of scrimmage talent. I don't have anything other than wide receivers. Texas recruited a lot of ornaments, basically. They recruited really good at running back. They recruited really good at wide receiver. They did not have line of scrimmage talent anywhere remotely close to on par with what you need to compete at the highest levels. I'm not saying they're there. I'm saying for 2 cycles in a row now, they have started to acquire that kind of talent.
Not only to focus.
Yes, yeah. And so you're going to see that pay off. I don't know if it pays off this year. It could be that Texas is one of those teams that you start to see evolve during the year. Like they play Bama in week 2. They're probably not beating Bama.
Right.
But it could be that ends up being one of the best things in the world for them. But with Clemson, to go back to that point you were making, everybody is going to pull out their preview magazine and they're going to see, where's Clemson's first game? They're just going to skip right over week 1 because they play at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's a very bad program. They've shown no signs of life. Tech didn't show signs of life last year. They almost beat Clemson. So Clemson goes in there. It's Monday night. It's Labor Day night. So it's a standalone game. Anyone who wants to watch it, like the entire college football's world, will be focused on it. And my mind keeps going back. I think I even mentioned this to you last time I was here. The what if. What if instead of 38-10 at the half, like everyone expects, like the point spread would indicate to you, what if it's like 16-13 late third quarter and Clemson's offense has got 118 yards total and they're up only because they're +2 turnovers and DJ looks terrible.
Well, I was about to say, how many overthrows does DJ have?
You have a backup on the bench this year like you didn't last year. It could be a non-issue in week 1, but it could be one of the biggest stories in week 1 that you're not expecting. No one's circling Clemson, Georgia Tech. But yet, if you're telling me that's a preseason title contender and they've got quarterback issues again in week 1 and they got a capable backup on the bench, yeah, it could also get a lot of attention in week 1.
Well, and Josh Pate in studio with us, Late Kick Live. Make sure you check out the YouTube channel. Subscribe. You'll get a notification when Josh pops on live. They cover the whole world of college football. Everything, conference realignment is but a small portion of the conversation because the conversation is driven by the sport and the competitors itself, which is what makes it such a great product. And just for unfortunate reasons, somewhat unique. Somewhat unique in these months.
We're not proud to carry the shield, but we will carry the shield.
No, you should be proud to carry the shield. In fact, more people should look to you carrying the shield and be like, why the hell aren't we carrying the shield as well as Josh is? But regardless, Late Kick Live. At week 1 in the NFL is such a weird result across the board. Like, for me, I try to not make any rash judgments off the first game of the season that I see because there's any number of factors going in. Yes, you have had so much time to continue to prepare for your week 1 opponent that it should seem that you should be the most prepared for an opponent at that point than you would be at any other point in the season. And yet there are all kinds of bat bleep crazy results. Is that the same kind of prism that you view college football week 1, or is everybody going to be looking at Clemson, as you say, and saying, all right, how quick is Dabo to pull the trigger on DJ if DJ doesn't look that great?
Oh, I think it's more that way in college. You're dealing with younger guys. I've always been a believer, not just week 1, but weeks 1 and 2. You see so many more games lost than are won. And so it's just this great catch-22 of one of my age-old adages is don't get married to your preseason expectations. Well, what if I were really high on Clemson preseason? Then they struggle in week 1. Am I supposed to believe they'll tighten the ship up? They'll be better. They just almost lost a game instead of Georgia Tech winning it. Or do I stay married to my preseason expectations? Or do I say, nope, divorce them entirely. The Clemson you thought you knew is not the Clemson of what real life is there. So I think that when you look at week 1 and 2, a lot of the teams, if you're betting, I always love to go to are the Iowas, the Wisconsins, the teams that just Kentucky's one of these. Mm-hmm. They're so sure of who they are. Utah goes to Florida this year, week 1. There's no question who Utah is. No question about their identity. Everyone, if you ask them in the building, what are the core philosophies and tenets of this program? They'll all give you the same 4 or 5 bullet points because they just know who they are.
Right.
And so those teams, I'm not saying they're perfect or they go, a perfect record in week 1, but they're dependable early in the year because all those teams have to do is just sit there. They don't even have to go after your throat. They sit there and over 60 minutes, they know they'll eventually give it to us. Like Iowa State last year, week 2, bunch of hype around Iowa State. I was feeding into it. Mm-hmm. I go up there to Ames, Iowa. Place is jacked, biggest game in the series history. And so everyone expects, oh man, they got to pull every tool out of the toolbox. And all Iowa did was come in there, beat Iowa, most boring game you'll ever see, and they just waited for the game to be given to them. Sure enough, Iowa State's like -4 turnovers.
Yeah.
Those teams win early in the year. Over the course of a season, that's when the cream starts to rise. But man, these teams, even the ones that are going to end up being 500 teams, they don't know they're 500 in week 1 or week 2. Right. They don't know any better. That's why Georgia goes to South Carolina week 3. Maybe South Carolina's a bowl team. Maybe they're not. They don't know in week 3.
I think they might be the biggest wild card in the certainly in the SEC East this year, just because I have no idea what to make of Spencer Rattler.
I don't think South Carolina does either. They'll say the right things. What they hope is they get a longer return on investment from him than just 1 year. Like if he comes in there and plays anywhere remotely on par with what he's capable of, it's one and he's gone to the NFL.
Yeah.
What they hope, and I hope it for them because I'd love to see more competitive teams in the East. What they hope and I hope is he puts together a good enough product to where he validates all the stuff he said in the preseason. Like he said when he came over from Oklahoma, man, I've already learned more at South Carolina than I did my entire time at Oklahoma. Well, that sounds like sour grapes until you back it up on the field. Mm-hmm. But if he starts to back that stuff up on the field, all of a sudden Shane Beamer can go to high schools, but also in the portal, probably more importantly in the portal in the future when South Carolina needs immediate infusion of quarterback talent and say, you saw what we did for Spencer Rattler. Look, he's playing for the Vikings now. He's playing for the Bears. We can do that for you too. They tell you we can't at South Carolina, but here's proof of performance. We can do it. That's why it's important.
It's right there.
It's really important for them this year.
Now, I want to circle back to Texas because I think Texas is a fascinating case study, not just because of Texas is always somewhat intriguing in some form or fashion, but because of Arch Manning's commitment right now, verbal commitment in the class of 2023. We saw an influx of commitments to Texas after Arch made his decision. But in the immediate, I think that they need, like, it can't look bad on the field for Texas this year. Like, they have to put together a competent product. Quinn Ewers has to be able to play to some level of expectation. Like, this was a highly touted quarterback, even if he came out early in high school the way that he did to go to Ohio State, and then C.J. Stroud takes the job. I think that or at least I'd be curious to know your opinion of what you think is a best case scenario for Texas, understanding that the Big 12 is pretty wide open, as you said, but to sustain momentum for Steve Sarkisian moving forward, because he got to win with Arch Manning, but now it's about, okay, can I continue to make this an appealing place for Arch and others to land with what I've got right now?
So if you've been tuned out and you're just coming back to college football table, my first piece of advice is don't let that happen in the future. But reality is reality.
Subscribe to Lake.
Yeah, of course. If you're just coming back, you need to know a couple of things about Texas. One, you're going to hear a ridiculous amount of Arch Manning coverage this year, even though he's not playing college football this year. But number two with Texas, you need to know they could not even practice in the spring. They didn't have enough offensive linemen. They had to cancel their spring game. They did just, I think, a glorified practice, which some would argue is what all spring games are. But
did you know that?
They couldn't even have a spring game because they didn't have O-linemen. So they're counting on an infusion of freshman O-line talent. That's bad news. The good news is they're really good.
Yeah.
They were our top-rated overall offensive line class, but freshman offensive linemen against the likes of Alabama coming in their week 2, for example, is why it's kind of a mismatch. But that's where we go back to Quinn Ewers. You just mentioned him. We've never seen him prove anything on the college level. A lot of people, myself included, think he's sky high in terms of potential. He's got to prove himself behind one of the biggest question marks, at least on O-line, in the entire country at a major program this year. They did bring in the Red Bull effect. They've got Xavier Worthy there, who's one of the best wide receivers in the country. They brought in a kid named Isaiah Nair, which you will not know the name of unless you're just following the sport all year. Came in from Wyoming, the classic Laramie to Austin wide receiver pipeline.
Sure.
Yeah, it's open for business again. They've got good skill talent. Bijan Robinson may be the best running back in the country. What kind of offensive line are they playing behind? Like, they have to be average. That's all you would ask as a Texas fan. If we can have average O-line play, we could add multiple wins. They were 5-7 last year. Their over-under win total with Bama on the schedule is 9 this year. That's called hype, folks. That's what that's called.
God. That's unthinkable to me. Now, Lucas just said in my ear, I don't want to take credit for your information, buddy. You want to tell people on the air what you just told me?
I was going to say, Tennessee fans will know who Isaiah Nair is because he started what is now called a portal flip and committed to Tennessee out of the transfer portal and now will be a Texas player.
It's not like Tennessee fans have any kind of a persecution complex anyway.
No. In fact,
Definitely not.
I've not seen any kind of vengeful behavior from our volunteer brethren over the past year that I could think of.
Volunteer brethren. Shiano Sunday. Anytime you have something called Shiano Sunday in your history, you're gonna have to eat it. Do you have time to talk about Tennessee coming up next?
Absolutely.
Josh Pate's in studio. Stick around. Welcome back. Buck Rising here with you until 1 o'clock. The great Josh Pate in studio. So, we talked about wild cards, or at least South Carolina's a wild card in the SEC this year. Is there a bigger one that comes to mind, East or West?
Oh, man, in the SEC? Well, I think
generally.
Arkansas, just until further notice, Arkansas will always be that team.
Should they be a wild card, though, or should at this point, should the expectation of Arkansas be that they're playing high-level football and they have more than competent coaching?
I don't know that they've got that equity built up yet. There are kids on that roster right now that lost to Western Kentucky and San Jose State and North Texas at home.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, I'm all, man, I'm Mr. Push My Nose Up and oink at you. Like, I love Arkansas. So
Thank you for not doing that here.
I ride for Arkansas. But is 1 year enough to erase all that in your mind?
It's a good question. Because, you're right. I think, and this is probably a product of what we do for a living, taking an off-air conversation onto the air. I do tend to traffic in recency bias, I think, when it comes to college football more than any other sport. Now, I don't know why that is specifically for me, but I think that Arkansas is probably the latest infatuation that I've had because I recognize their success. I am aware of the downtroddenness that they've had. I mean, what did we find out, Lucas, if it was 2 years without winning an SEC game? Is that an accurate statistic about Arkansas and the football program? So I think that is a more judicious approach to what we have seen here recently under Sam Pittman.
It's fair. Now, I know there are a lot of doubters out there. Part of it's just because of the division they play in. Like I say a lot of times, if I kept the program the same and dropped them in the ACC, you'd be talking about them in Clemson right now. That's what you'd be talking about. So part of it is the division. I get that. I'll grant you that. They're not the favorite for a reason. Alabama still exists. But I think there may be some people who think it's like this sugar high effect with them. Because we've seen coaches come in before, and it's basically like Malzahn in his first year at Auburn. It was like he walked up and slapped the entire conference in the back of its head before they even knew there was someone behind him. And all of a sudden, Auburn's in the national championship game with the same team that missed out on a bowl game the year before. And you're like, well, what?
Yeah.
No one knows what happened. Well, then he never reached that height again. So some people could look at Sam Pittman and say, okay, yeah, you won 9 games last year, but now everyone's on to you. The difference with Arkansas is it's not going to really matter if you're on to them so much because what they do is not a mystery. What they were doing last year is not a mystery. It didn't take anybody any time to figure out what they were doing. But what they do have is they have a rock-solid foundation. They've got coaches with options to go elsewhere. I know I've given you this before. I'm not going down this rabbit hole for very much longer. But
no, but listen, I think it's relevant for the audience because it may not be the same people.
They've got – it used to be that Arkansas was the backup option. You went there. If you couldn't get other SEC jobs, you went there so you could get SEC on your resume for a couple years. They've got guys with options who are choosing to stay. Both of those coordinators, Kendall Briles and Barry Odom, had options. I can promise you they had options this past blank season, and they chose to stay at Arkansas. Folks love it there. Folks talk the same way about North Carolina. It's just they don't think they can win the same way at North Carolina right now as they do Arkansas. But those are two programs that are really underrated, attractive jobs that haven't always been that way. In the past 5 years, they haven't always been that.
Well, and Lucas just told me that Kendall Briles, this is the first time that he's had a returning starter at quarterback,
Ever.
which is obviously going to go a long way for any kind of continuity that an offensive coordinator would seek to have. So where in all of this, and I know, SEC West and SEC East are two very, very different things as far as the haves and the have-nots, but it seems like we are getting at least some semblance of greater balance. With Kentucky being consistent, as you mentioned, the kind of predictable that you would associate with a school like Iowa or Utah, right? We understand what Mark Stoops and his staff want to accomplish, and we understand that Will Levis in his first year at that program seemed to operate a pro-style system well, even if he's not statistically, blowing, not going crazy. Like you're not going to box score Will Levis and say, oh, that's a pro prospect at quarterback, even if he clearly has the ability to do so. Because then there's Tennessee, and pro prospects matter none for the upcoming college football season. And you mentioned figuring out or they're not needing to be a figuring out of what Arkansas is. Well, I feel the same about Tennessee, but that seems to be a concern from some of the Vols fans who we interact with on a regular basis. Is there kind of a moment where, like at UCF, Josh Heupel will have less of an edge on offense than he had in his first outing in the SEC. That's been a concern that's been expressed several times, and for me, that's the least of my issues with what I expect from UT this year and what I expect specifically from that side of the ball.
Well, so let me do the most unprofessional thing I can do.
Please do.
Hey, Buck, let me ask you a question here. So if you don't have those doubts, why don't you have those doubts? Because I agree with you, but we may have different reasons. Why don't you have the doubts that some other people do?
Because I think that Hendon Hooker at quarterback is a really interesting prospect. Now, again, I'm relating that through my own prism, but I see things from him there that are coachable, whether it's, just getting to his second read rather than seeing his first one and throwing the ball immediately in the system. I see talent there if there's just a little bit more touch on the ball that prolongs a drive as opposed to a couple of 3-and-outs that pile up and all of a sudden your defense is gassed. Maybe that's not the best answer there, but that's kind of the justification for it.
It was above average. I like it. It's enough, so we'll let it ride. Because I agree with you there. As much as we're talking about Kendall Briles at Arkansas having a second year with KJ Jefferson, let's not just gloss over the fact that Hendon Hooker was basically like an ACC refugee that came in here. Well, now he gets a second year under a guy who specializes not only at head coach, but also at his position and on his side of the ball. That's not worth nothing. It's worth a lot. It's not worth nothing. But also, I'll just zoom the thing way out. Do you know they're the 5th-ranked recruiting class in the country right now?
I did.
These kids aren't going to play this year.
Yes, I did
But the
know
biggest
that.
question tied to Heupel in people's subconscious was not, what's he going to do with the roster they currently have? It was, that guy's going to recruit against Kirby Smart. That guy's going to recruit in the same neighborhood as Nick Saban. Well, look, that remains to be seen. But they're doing, I think, talking to people in the industry, people are very surprised at how good Josh Heupel and Tennessee are recruiting. They've got to get pen on paper, all this stuff that always comes. Anytime you talk about recruiting, well, you ain't signed anybody yet. Well, half of them will probably transfer or decommit. Challenge those people to bet money on those statements. They always shut up because it never happens. Half of your class doesn't ever decommit. So they're mostly going to sign. They'll have a few, and they'll anecdotally be used against you until the end of time. They're going to sign most of the kids they have committed. Mm-hmm. They're going to get some more they don't have committed. They're going to have a really, really good, well into the top 10 class.
Yes.
And that is going to be in the back of people's minds when they do whatever they do on the field this year. If they go above and beyond on the field again this year, it will only help that recruiting momentum. But I think that just watching us get closer to signing day, even if Tennessee has a season that's right in line with your expectations, if you marry that with, oh, wow, and kids are actually buying into the concept of the future, dude, that's all you need to sell people on Josh Heupel in the future of the program.
No, that seems to be, and again, I think Vols fans are just cautiously optimistic about any football season at this point.
As they should be.
To kind of look at this, because we've had a conversation earlier, how much different does hype around Tennessee this year and this coaching staff, or if hype is even the proper word, how much does that compare to when Butch Jones was recruiting at a high level, or even Jeremy Pruitt in the pandemic recruiting cycle was well regarded for what he was able to do, or what Tennessee was able to do, whether those guys panned out or not once they got to campus, or those who even made it to campus. So I think that's the kind of worldview that a Vols fan would have. But looking at the rest of it, I just think that Tennessee has the opportunity to be able to compete with the Kentuckys. I mean, they own them head to head, even when they've been down bad and things like that. I just Georgia is another one of those. Not even like Clemson. Like, there's proof of concept. Georgia is both consistent in what they do and also with better talent than everybody else.
So if you think about what's cost Tennessee, not in any specific game, if you were just to attribute a few things that have been the biggest kind of chain around the collective ankle of Tennessee, it's been the inability to be consistent. Even last year, they weren't consistent. Their second half performance dropped off precipitously from their first half performance. So you want more consistency, but really you just want more. You want more in the advanced metrics category, the explosivity, the yards per play stuff. You want better offensively. You don't want to hit a 55-yard pass downfield and then go 3 and out the next 4 drives. You want consistency. You want to consistently be able to move the ball down the field. They haven't had that, but it really all ties back into recruiting. It's as short and long as that. They have not been able to acquire talent. It's so basic, but it's so hard. But when you can acquire talent, all of a sudden, man, those 3rd and 4s don't result in you punting as often. You move the chains. You're on the field more. Your defense isn't playing 103 plays as often as it used to, or even a fraction of that. So that kind of stuff should this year look a little better than it did last year. And as it's happening, you should be looking at that recruiting class as we get closer to that early signing day. That, I think, come January, unless Tennessee's in the playoff or something, come January, the biggest headline around that program, I don't even think will be the bowl game they're in. I think it's going to be, look at this class they just signed. We've got 2 years proof of product under Heupel and this class. That'll put them on the cover of a bunch of preview magazines next year.
That's exactly what Tennessee fans want to hear. What's Coach Mack say? Keep your powder dry. We'll get there. Got to play college football season first. Josh Pate, Late Kick Live, hanging out here with us. All right, quick one for you on the way out, and I appreciate your time as always, my friend. I know you're busy. The ACC is fascinating to me beyond Clemson. Clemson is an interesting case study, but NC State and Wake Forest coming down to the last week of the regular season last year. NC State could have very easily played in that title game as opposed to Wake Forest. Both of them are returning a lot of talent and have legitimate expectations. I think the ACC beyond Clemson is probably more interesting to me than what they do at quarterback, even if that's going to be the sexier talking point.
We were out in LA a few weeks ago for Elite 11. And all the talk was about the high school kids out there, but they had a lot of college kids out there.
Weren't you in LA when this UCLA stuff happened?
You should have asked me about that 20 minutes ago. That was its own. Let me just give you this sentence, okay? Knowing me like you do, all the weeks you've known me, Buck, knowing me like you do, could you ever imagine this sentence coming out of my mouth? Let's just iPhone, call to Buck.
Hi, Josh.
Hey, bud, you'll never believe this. I was just coming back from Lululemon, and I was standing in line at Starbucks, and news just broke that USC and UCLA are going to the Big Ten. What kind of book could you write on that sentence that just came out of my mouth? Think about how many chapters.
Oh man, I can't even begin to imagine. I apologize for completely derailing you with that side point because I had forgotten about that in the middle of all this.
But by all means, let's talk about the Wolfpack of NC State.
Please,
let's get back on track.
Sorry.
So we were out there for that, and Devin Leary, the quarterback for NC State, was there. Bryce Young was there. C.J. Stroud was there. I have not watched Leary in person. I've never seen him play in person. And so I just stood behind him for like 10 minutes, and I watched him throw. He throws a really, really good ball.
Yes.
It's just that they're so good defensively. They don't light up the stat sheet. So you're probably not going to see him in New York City or on any preseason Heisman watch list. But I looked at him and I thought, wait, that guy throws this ball this good. I know it's in shorts and whatnot, but it's just, it comes out of his hand. If you've been around the quarterbacks, you've seen the ones where it jumps. It's like pitchers.
Oh, especially at Elite 11 when you're looking at high school kids as opposed to college kids like Nick Leary, who's been in it for a long time.
Right. The ankles are thicker. The ball comes out better. It's amazing what college strength and conditioning does to a guy.
Sure.
So he's throwing routes. I mean, he looks really, really good, as most guys of his age would in that setting. Well, I'm looking at him and I'm saying, I got Bryce Young over here. That dude had to do 108% of their offense last year for him to win the Heisman. C.J. Stroud's over there. He's got racehorse receivers. This kid right here, he just needs to play above average football and let his defense win games for him this year. And look, if Clemson has a superstar at quarterback, no, that won't matter. If Tyler Van Dyke really does emerge as a Heisman type guy at Miami, maybe it won't matter. That's a big if in both those sentences.
Yeah.
If no one really emerges there, NC State could drag so many people into the deep end of the pool. And if you can't play quarterback over there, you're not able to swim out there, they'll just drown you. And that's how they can win the ACC, just by using the alligator method. Just grab you, pull you out.
Maybe a death roll in between. Josh Pate, Late Kick Live. Make sure you check it out. If you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, do it. But if you do not catch the show live on the Late Kick Live YouTube channel, it is available via podcast wherever you can get your podcast. Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
Coming up next, we are going to get into a conversation, something funny that happened on the internet between Lamar Jackson and Bernard Pollard. It's going to make you laugh. Talk.
It is 12:01. Good afternoon from the Superbook.com sports desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Open Championship continues on. Majority of players done with the first round. The leader, American Cameron Young, at 8 under. Rory McIlroy at 6 under, with Cameron Smith at 5 under in third. The Atlanta Braves keeping it in the division tonight, taking on the Washington Nationals on the road. That is a 6:20 first pitch. Braves still 2.5 games back of the Mets after losing a series to the Mets just this week in Atlanta. And the Nashville Sounds taking on the Memphis Redbirds again tonight after dropping games on Tuesday and Wednesday. First pitch against the Redbirds at 7:05 at First Horizon Park. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once and your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour. That happened quickly. It's been a fun show today, but it is not over yet. We are with you until 1 o'clock, we being Lucas Panzica, myself. Happy to have you guys in for the final hour of our program. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in on the conversation today. 615-737-1045 is how you get it done. So, we have talked a lot about the world of college football. We opened the show talking about a funny story having to do with Nashville SC. Now, I want to circle back just for a moment before we continue with our regularly scheduled programming, because we do have a lot to discuss. Some interesting comments made by John Robinson on a podcast with former Falcons and Patriots executive Thomas Dimitroff called The GM Journey that we're going to share with you here in just a second, and some insights and analysis from Greg Cosell. It's a lot of football to fill this final hour up. But we opened with the back line. For those of you who were not with us at the start of the show or have not seen this, the back line is a collection of supporters group, a collection of fan groups for the Nashville Soccer Club. They made a list of demands yesterday on the internet from their collective's Twitter account, saying, among other things, that they deserve more attention, that they feel the club has not reciprocated their energy or the things or fulfilled promises that were made to them previously, things such as meetings with CEO Ian Ayre, things such as discounted liquor prices, apparently, which is a funny thing to include on a list of demands. I demand that we have beer on tap in the studio every day. I think, every once in a while we do these third and home remotes with 3HL. Slay's got at least a half a Tito's and soda in him by the final segment of that show. I believe that there needs to be a tap in the studio. This is on my list of demands. Satisfy them by 1 o'clock today, or we will, I don't know what we'll do, because I'm going to show up and talk into a microphone anyway. But so they made this list of demands of the soccer club in ways that were laugh out loud funny and also completely futile. Like, what are you doing? There's nothing, you have no ground to stand on. You have zero leverage. How did you describe this, Lucas, earlier, as far as overplaying one's hand?
Yeah, the most overplayed hand in history. Just in history.
Well, I submit to you another nominee, because I don't even think it's the most overplayed hand in Nashville sports history. This is a great tweet courtesy of Dr. Ryan Longnecker. I assume, okay, yeah, I think that's how I say it. Dr. Ryan Longnecker tweets us this. This backline thing is pretty impressive, but does it really beat the time the Preds anthem singer took his ball and went home when music superstars trumped him during the Stanley Cup? Do you remember this at all?
No.
I remember this being quite an incident. Like, this guy was on a media tour. Now, I'm going to look up his name, and I'm going to kick myself for not remembering this in real time, because it was such a continued local thing, and maybe it was just because of the place that I was working at the time that it became a bigger story. But there was a guy who did the anthem on a regular basis. I don't know that he did every home game at Bridgestone Arena, but he did the vast majority of them. And so for the Stanley Cup that year, it was not him who was contracted to do or asked to do the national anthem. Do you know who it was instead? People like Carrie Underwood, who, by the way, was married to Mike Fisher at the time, which should not be the only qualification for why she should get to sing the anthem over this individual whose name escapes me. But among the reasons, outside of being international acclaimed recording artist Carrie Underwood, who can sing your national anthem on national television, yeah, you're going to lose that fight. Thomas, I don't remember if Thomas Rhett did an anthem. This is where I get my modern country music singers mixed up. Dierks Bentley, there's another guy in country music who it might have been Dierks Bentley that did the anthem. Maybe I'm thinking of Dierks Bentley, because I think there's a Dierks Bentley lookalike, a Dierks Bentley clone that has a similar name that runs around in country music who I don't know and whose songs probably sound the same as Dierks Bentley.
Yeah, Burks Dentley.
That's not funny. You were smiling. You gotta give yourself some booze or something like that. A terrible joke.
Oh, we do need a booze.
A terrible joke, drop. Or like the loser game show sound on the Price is Right. Like that's the kind of thing you need to give yourself if you make a bad joke, or to hit me with it when I make a bad joke. Shameful, really, by you.
Yeah, we got to find something.
Burks Dentley is what you came to the microphone with. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But anyway, you want to talk about overplayed hands? My guy went like on a media tour. Like he was doing interviews about it, saying that the Preds had promised him certain things and that he had been wronged. He's out here claiming that he deserved to sing the national anthem. Dennis K. Morgan, look at V-Love coming in the clutch. Dennis K. Morgan, the former anthem singer of the Nashville Predators. I would venture a guess, if you Googled the name Dennis K. Morgan right now on your Google machines, as I am, I bet you would find some headlines. In fact, right here from the Tennessean, July 7th, 2017. Nearly, 5 years ago? Over 5 years ago. Jilted former Predators national anthem singer on a headline of the Tennessean. Quote, "I don't want to have an association with the organization any longer." Former Preds national anthem singer Dennis K. Morgan said Friday he no longer wanted to associate with the Nashville hockey team during an appearance on a Canadian sports radio program. So he outsourced it. He went international with this bad boy. Quote, "Even in the unlikely event that I was invited to sing the national anthem, I don't want to have an association with the organization any longer." Morgan sang the anthem for the Preds more than 185 times before the organization began looking to famous country stars during the team's improbable Stanley Cup run. I add parenthetically, as one does, like as any competent professional sports organization would do. Sports and entertainment. He first spoke publicly to the Tennessean about his disappointment in May. So this wasn't just the Stanley Cup, like this was throughout the postseason. Like they started recruiting big name like recording artists to do the anthem during that postseason. Despite a self-described thick skin, Morgan said he was first disappointed when Carrie Underwood was asked to take his place singing the national anthem before Game 3 of the series against Chicago Blackhawks. A series, by the way, which they went on to sweep.
So this whole situation with the back line just reminded you of all that?
It reminded me of you said overplayed hand.
There's a ton of similarities.
I don't think anybody had a more overplayed hand than my guy Dennis K. Morgan.
Overplayed hand, complete and utter lack of self-awareness. What? That definitely you can draw comparisons.
What goes through your head?
Yeah, self-importance. Yeah, absolutely.
Listen, I don't find it productive to call people names. Like I would prefer to say, that person is displaying the behavior of X, Y, and Z rather than to call them a name. But that just strikes me as such loser behavior. That is such a, I don't even know what the proper term is. Beta is probably not the right thing to use anymore. I don't know whether that's a thing or not. Anyway, like it just stinks. Like who the hell, again, like the backline, who the hell do you think you are? It's Carrie Underwood.
It'd be like, so you did the celebrity baseball thing with the sounds, right?
Correct.
Last year. It'd be like if they invited you to that and you say, yeah, okay, I'll go play. And then they called you the next day, like, hey, I'm sorry. Eddie George, he can actually make it. He had a thing fall through, so sorry. We're going to have Eddie
it's even
George do
bigger
it.
than that. It's not even like famous former athlete X that is 10 times the star power that I would bring to a celebrity softball game. It's like saying, hey, we got Shohei Ohtani to play in the celebrity softball game. We're going to need you to take a back seat.
How dare they?
And you know what I would have said anyway? I'd have said, you know what? That's fine, boys. Can I still drink tequila in the dugout like I did with Jelly Roll during the majority of that celebrity softball game? That's all I want. Just leave me in the dugout. I want no part in the celebrity softball game. Just leave me to drink tequila with everybody else that Jelly was feeding shots throughout the course of that, which I would like to attribute to my poor performance in the celebrity softball game, but I think that's just unathleticism. But yeah. Overplayed hands in Nashville sports. We got a pretty good list. Those are two fantastic examples. One does not necessarily come to mind for the Titans.
Oh, I don't know. A.J. Brown. I guess he got what he wanted. But
actually, that's a pretty
sounds like an overplayed hand.
I mean, the NFL kind of told him that too with the top 10 wide receivers list. Like the Titans were going to outright tell him, hey, you're not a $100 million player at that position, bud, especially because we run the ball all the damn time. And like your volume is not going to be that of $100 million price justification. But also the NFL Jeremy Fowler surveyed people in the NFL, 50 people, executive scouts, coaches, and players. And A.J. Brown was outside looking in. He was top 15 as opposed to top 10. And the money that he's getting paid right now, I believe, is like top 5, top 6.
Yeah, it depends on if you're looking at total value of the contract and yearly salary. But yes, it is most certainly at that tier.
That's a pretty good example of an overplayed hand without any time to prepare. Bravo. Good job out of you. 615-737-1045 is the number. What you're going to hear coming up next, John Robinson and his philosophy about the marriage of analytics and football and what the tape study shows. It's an interesting conversation that he had with former Falcons GM and a Patriots exec, I believe, at the same time that John was. Thomas Dimitroff on the GM Journey podcast. I believe 3HL played a portion of this interview as well, but we're going to add Greg Cosell into the mix because Greg and I had a great conversation revolving around this, all of which is on the other side. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
The Buck Rising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Visit springhillac.com.
Absolutely it is. Many thanks to Spring Hill Heating and Cooling for making the radio show possible and for providing all of the excellent discussions and interviews that we are able to do. 615-737-1045 is the number. What would you say is the best trait of John Robinson as a general manager? That's the question I'd like to ask you. What do you think his best asset is? What does he bring to the table that you value? We cite a lot the record, the consistency of success, the lack of, they haven't had a losing record since his first year on the job, which was Marcus Mariota's rookie season. No. Marcus Mariota, yeah. John Robinson did not draft Marcus. No, I'm sorry. I've got my dates mixed up. Marcus was drafted by Rustin Webster. John
Correct.
came in the next year.
Yeah,
Because Marcus's rookie year
15.
is when Wisenhunt got fired in the season, and they fired Rustin Webster, and John Robinson had the number 1 overall pick, and then all of a sudden this man's out here wheeling and dealing in Jack Conklin instead of Jared Goff. Got my timeline straight. So we do cite his ability to find personnel. Last year it was just the ability to go out and assemble a roster with mismatched parts all over the place to find 2 players at the running back position who can kind of give you what you lost in Derrick Henry, to continue to put together assets and to be pretty judicious in, okay, when is the time to trade up to get a player that you absolutely cannot live without? Or how do you kind of let the board fall to you? What would you say John Robinson's biggest asset is? 615-737-1045. Because I was listening to the GM Journey podcast, and I believe we played this clip for some of you earlier in the week. You may not have heard it, depending on what hour we played it in. But Thomas Dimitroff hosts this podcast, the former general manager of the Falcons. He just drives around the country, I guess, to different facilities and sits down in a lawn chair with another GM, and they chop it up. And so it's a lot of philosophical discussion that I really enjoyed. But the first and foremost thing that stood out to me about John was listening to his response to a question about advanced statistical measurements in football and how some organizations apply them and how some don't.
Where we are with analytics, is there a nice fine line on being on the front end of the curve in your mind? Do you think that's your responsibility to make sure that you're open-minded to it, however, you're still very cognizant of not getting over your skis, so to speak?
Yeah, and that's one thing, with social media and the digital age and everything is so, sometimes it drives me crazy with all the stuff that gets set out there, and everybody's an expert, and you're right, and we incorporate some analytical data into some of the decisions that we make, but I'd say 90% of the decisions we make is we put the film on and we watch the guy play football. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. Like, does the guy play football pretty good? You're hiring the guy to play football, not look at a bunch of numbers and and all that. Now, there's a part of that plays into that. I'm not trying to say like I'm some 1960s GM here. I get it.
Yeah.
But there's a balance there, and at the end of the day, like, keep coming back to you put the film on, and does the guy good at playing football? If the guy's good at playing football, then you try to get that guy on your team. If he's on your team and he's good at playing football, his position, then you want to try to keep him around. If he's not, you're going to find somebody to replace him. So whatever the numbers say and the metrics say, at the end of the day, the film and the evaluation of how he does his job is probably the most important thing.
So that's John Robinson, Titans GM, on the GM Journey podcast. So 3HL had that clip, and it got me to thinking, because I think a lot of people would hear that sound. Now, depending on what your view of football is and how you consume football and the amount of different things you use to consume football, you may be on one side of the discussion or the other. You may think that John Robinson in that clip sounds outdated. You may think that 90% of football decisions being made just purely off tape study is not necessarily the way that a modern general manager would go about doing his business, or maybe should. Or you may completely agree with his assessment And you may say, yeah, football is about watching the football players play football and then seeing how they can play football for you, which is the most basic form of the argument, and also, of course, should carry the most weight. I think the balance in football specifically has been so lost in how it's covered, in how many different kinds of numbers, like Pro Football Focus. I heard Jason and Ramon talking about Pro Football Focus today and how long it's been around. I think it was founded in the United Kingdom in 2007. Chris Collinsworth bought a majority stake, I think, in like 2003 or 2013. All of a sudden, it's on Sunday Night Football, and this is how we're grading NFL players, which, fine. They have metrics that are valuable. But I think the largest issue that the football community has with peoples who traffic almost exclusively in numerical data is that it is so hard to apply the numerical data to situations that happen in a sport as random as football. Now, there are some things that can tell you just how well or how poorly a player did perform after the fact. You can look at certain situations, you can put on down and distance on the tape, and then you can see what, how many air yards per attempt Ryan Tannehill is throwing and what may be causing that number to be deficient in some form or fashion. Or why is he exceeding the way that he is? But I think when you look at this specifically, football people get so frustrated with the applications of numbers from the outside because it is difficult to apply it wholesale to football situations, which is something that Greg Cosell and myself talked about yesterday on our own podcast. Since we're talking about podcasts here, Greg and I do one every week. It's called The Install. It's available in your favorite podcast feed. So among other things, because we did a lot on Lamar Jackson and Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance, some quarterbacks in the news recently, but I just wanted to talk to Greg about scouting, because I talk to coaches, but Greg talks to more. Greg has flown around the country to certain settings and to certain, hell, he spent, I think, a whole week with the New Orleans Saints just documenting things for NFL Films and learning about what that program is going to look like under Dennis Allen. So I asked Greg, how does this marry, or how does this merge with your scouting philosophy? And I thought his answer was really applicable to what we're talking about here.
Well, yes. And the way I'd answer, it's funny you brought up baseball. To me, and again, I just thought of this right now when you were speaking. The more moving parts there are in a given sport, to me, the less static analytics matters.
Yeah.
Again, so I don't want people to hear that and think that, okay, analytics doesn't matter at all. But when you have 22 moving players on every play, that's not like baseball. I go back, I was a huge baseball fan. I played baseball, and I was a huge baseball fan. And I remember going back, it was probably in the 80s. Do you know Bill James? Do you know that name?
Yes, I know Bill James.
Okay. He was the first guy to write all these books. Back then it was called Sabermetrics.
Mm-hmm.
And I read all that stuff because baseball lends itself to that. It's not a movement sport. Okay. At its core, it's the pitcher and the hitter. At its core. And then obviously, depending on what happens next, other players can be involved. But when you have 22 moving pieces on every single play that can be in totally different places on every single play, to me, and again, I'm a tape guy, so someone listening who's an analytics guy could tell me I'm an idiot, okay? And I accept that. But when there's 22 moving pieces on every single play, I just find it difficult to look at static statistical information as the foundation for why you do things.
Yeah.
That's just my, as Billy Joel said in a song, that's my pointless point of view.
I don't think it's pointless at all. I think it's completely applicable, and I think Greg probably speaks for a larger majority of the football working community, not football consuming community, because these numbers are relevant for you and me. If you want to know more about how well or how poorly your favorite player is doing, or if you can apply the metrics to fantasy football and have that help you in your draft, there are better uses, and it's not like there's not football uses for the numerical data. Of course there is. That's not what we're saying at all. But it just seems like that's gotten so warped. And I brought up the example of baseball because I think that for a lot of people, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this or if you feel differently, But I feel like for a lot of people, baseball is your first sport in some form or fashion. For a lot of people, maybe not necessarily for like Lucas or I. I know we're a bad representative sample size of this because we do not pretend to be baseball diehard fans. Like, I'm aware that the Braves and the Mets are in a very, very important series.
No, it's over.
Oh, it's over?
Yeah. You play the Nationals today? That's amazing. It's amazing what just happened there.
That's why we can't talk baseball, man.
I'm aware the Braves play the Mets tonight.
And
but
then
I'm not.
I was aware that it was going on.
They lost 2 out of 3.
Okay.
2.5 games back.
But, also why we make it a point to not talk about baseball, because we don't know what the hell we're talking about. We don't do baseball. That's fine. But for a lot of people, that's the game that they come to first. And so from that perspective, with baseball, I think it's difficult to get people like you and me in the tent, not just because the style of play is not aesthetically pleasing right now, not just because the games can take forever and a day to play out, but because the way that baseball is numerically charted, the way that the front offices have used it to maximize player efficiencies, there is so much data that you are just absolutely swamped by that it can be very, very difficult to process if you are not somebody who came to baseball early, right? If it is not ingrained in who you are, like it clearly is not ingrained in who Lucas and I are. Again, that's fine. But I think baseball can kind of be a little exclusive in that way, and it's been a better business model for teams. It's given small market teams like the Tampa Bay Rays the ability to win because they can better utilize their data when their salary, when their payroll is not nearly what a New York Yankees or an LA Dodgers would be. Those kind of things. I still can't get over that. I didn't know that the Braves and Mets series was over. That is laugh out loud funny. I'm glad that we had that reaction real time. I hope that everybody found that as funny as we did, because that's just a glaring hole in us as a programming entity.
Is that why you'd rather have a WNBA team than an MLB team?
Because I don't know anything about baseball.
Might be out of a job, yeah.
Well, there's probably some truth to that. No, I like basketball better than I like baseball.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
Now, if you're asking me which would I rather attend, baseball games are fun as hell live, but I go to baseball to go drink with my buddies and ignore baseball. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm looking at my phone more than I'm looking at what's happening on the field.
It's the aesthetic, right?
Yeah. It's outdoors. It's summertime. You have a hot dog. You get some cold beer. Or if beer isn't your thing, like whatever. You can go out there, booze. If you're like minor league, the First Horizon Park is always popping. And there's probably, I think 40% of people are not paying attention to the baseball at First Horizon. And that, that's maybe not necessarily fair to the players or whatever, but I think if you're asking me which I would rather attend, baseball. Which would I rather talk about? Definitely basketball in any way, shape, or form. Anyway, 615-737-1045. I just found that to be an interesting part of the discussion. The whole conversation with Thomas Dimitroff and John Robinson was interesting. And in doing so, one of the more difficult components that I don't think people factor in is just the general workplace balance that has to be had in a professional sports organization. Think about, for example, no better local example than Mike Vrabel. I think anybody who has listened to a press conference, who has seen Mike anywhere in media doing anything, would be able to recognize that Mike Vrabel is a strong personality, a hugely intelligent individual in what it is that he does, and not afraid to let you know that. Now imagine that you have to be the person that balances a workplace environment around Mike Vrabel, like John Robinson does. That's not necessarily an easy thing to do. That was something that Dimitroff asked John Robinson about, and I found John's response there pretty compelling as well.
And you're now dealing with a really strong-minded, intelligent, opinionated head coach, and I say that respectfully. He's got a presence about him. How do you navigate that and keep your relationship thriving as it is? Because it seems from where we are, it's really operating well. Again, if you were to just provide advice, how do you do that with the strong head coach and obviously you being the omnipotent man in the building? How does that all work?
I think you have to be patient. There are things that tick Mike off. There's things that tick me off. Patience, allow cooler heads to prevail. I think that's important. I think it's transparency between myself and him. That at the end of the day, we're going to do what's best for the football team. There's nothing more important than the team.
Okay, let's just talk again about transparency, because sometimes that can be complicated, right? There are times I was told by a close friend of mine, and a person I think you know as well, R.C. Buford with the Spurs, who was just so well renowned for his leadership ability. And early on, he would tell me, like, Thomas, don't just, turn on the fire hose with all of this transparency. There's a nice fine line there, though, right? You obviously have a really good feel. You always have been very intuitive and together and streamlined on a lot of your approaches, even back from when we all worked together. Again, navigating that is not that easy all the time. When you're trying, again, to your point, when you have a head coach who has some strong beliefs and you do, where do you draw the line with transparency? Is that something from situation to situation? It's about awareness for you?
Yeah, it's really, it's instinct and feel for the situation, whatever it may be. It's timing, knowing when to approach and talk about this or talk about that, or, hey, let me just kind of let that kind of simmer for a little bit, and I'll circle back on it. I know when he's prepping for squad meeting in the morning, I'm not going to go in there 10 minutes before and go over roster stuff. Like, he's trying to get his mind right for the squad meeting to address the team. So just knowing and having a feel when to approach, it's no different than, a basketball player knowing when to take the shot, or, quarterback knowing when to throw the ball to this guy or that guy. It's just this instincts and feel that you either got it or you don't.
That's right.
That's John Robinson and Thomas Dimitroff on the GM Journey podcast, kind of talking about the idea of transparency. That is something from Mike Vrabel and John Robinson that you guys are constantly, and us too, as a part of our job, to ask these guys questions on a regular basis. Just a degree more of transparency. Now, I think John and Mike probably operate on a more strict spectrum when it comes to that, where Frank Reich will just give you a random timeline for a Carson Wentz ankle injury at a press conference and then move on with his day. Mike Mularkey used to do stuff like that. It's not that uncommon from different kinds of coaches, but certainly if you feel that you need to play it close to the vest, that's the best way to go about your business. And that's kind of when you talk about cultural discussions within sports organizations, I think that's a term that gets glossed over so easily. It's just something you throw out. Well, that team's got a bad culture, or we're coming in to rebuild the culture at an opening press conference for a new GM or a coach, or we like the culture that we have around here. The culture in the locker room is good. But nobody really articulates what exactly that is and how many different components go into it that make it either a success or a failure. Make it either a productive workplace or a toxic one. And there's a lot that can be gleaned from those conversations, because it's, the cliche term is inside baseball, but this is like legitimately inside football stuff as to how these guys go about, and gals now, as the sport is slowly but surely becoming more progressive. There's a lot of stuff there that you see that they're willing to be more open about the process, about how it is that they go through their day to day. I'm not gonna lie. I laughed a little bit when he said there's things that tick Mike off, and I said, yeah, any press conference ever in the history of his time here. But that always leads to great content, for which we are grateful. All right, last call for phone calls. Do some polls. We got anything? Oh, we got we need to talk about this bowling thing. We need to talk about this bowling thing coming up next. We got a lot of fun stuff on tap tomorrow as we get ready to put a bow on our leg of the programming today. Welcome back. Do some polls in a second. And Dawn Davenport's going to be on the show. Well, are we going to fight about something? What does Dawn want with us?
Well, I told her we'll preview SEC Media Days if we can stay on track.
So, at the risk of burning this whole place down, is Dawn coming in? Dawn going to be here?
TBD.
Okay. It's like Slay. What is it with 3HL? Every time we try to have one of them on, it's just up in the air.
Yeah, but you're also asking them to come into work like 3 hours early, so I kind of get it.
Oh, no, I wouldn't do it. Like I said, or like Josh Pate said, I have a unique ability, not something that I've learned, not something that was taught, but something that I was born with, to single-handedly every time make something exclusively about myself. So from that standpoint, yes, I would say to ask Dawn to come in 3 hours early for her workday when she lives. I mean, she doesn't live close like I do. Like it takes me, I can leave my house and get here in 7 minutes. The way that we push it every day, basically, or that I push it every day. Dawn lives in in Williamson County, right? She's out there. She's in the classy part of town. Anyway, Dawn will be here. She's giving away some bowling tickets. She's going to give away a bowling ticket, rather, to be more specific, for the Brooklyn Bowl event that is coming up less than a week. We are less than a week. We are officially 6 days away from the Brooklyn Bowl event. So Dawn will have a ticket, a singular ticket, for somebody to win tomorrow. We're going to do that in the segment when Dawn's on the air. But I'm pushing for a sellout. I want to sell 50 tickets by the end of the show tomorrow. That's 10 tickets that we have to do. So if it's 5 today and 5 tomorrow, that's fine. But I want to sell 50 tickets for the charity that we're supporting, the Church at Mount Carmel, and their free youth summer camp program that they put on for less fortunate children in the downtown Nashville area. We're throwing this party at Brooklyn Bowl. What you get if you purchase a ticket: 3 hours of bowling at Brooklyn Bowl with 70, hopefully, of your closest friends. Right now, 40. 40's a good group, but we want 50, we want 60, we want 70. We want to throw a banger. So right now, 40 of your closest friends are going to be hanging out with you at Brooklyn Bowl. You get bowling for 3 hours. You get free food. You get free booze. You get the opportunity you do get raffle tickets for the opportunity to win great prizes that we will be doing throughout the course of the event itself. Coach Dave McGinnis is going to be on the radio show tomorrow, but he's also going to be at Brooklyn Bowl. Ramon Foster is going to be on the radio tomorrow, not on our show tomorrow, but he's also going to be at Brooklyn Bowl. We got a lot of cool people coming to hang out with you, and we can't wait to hang out with you guys as well. So 1045thezone.com is where you go to purchase tickets. And say you look at it and it may be, all right, maybe that's a little steep. Maybe that's depending. I don't know everybody's circumstance. Well, you could do something like win a ticket from Dawn tomorrow and then split the cost of that between two people, right? You could win a ticket. You could give your buddy $30 or your significant other $30 to purchase their ticket so that they can have it for a lesser cost. There are so many ways to do this for a great cause, and also it's a tax write-off because it's for a charitable purpose. So, 1045thezone.com, give me some polls.
Goes Frazier. Down goes Frazier. The polls have closed and the votes have been tallied. It's the segment where bias takes over and nuance goes to die. Now, here's your favorite Buck Rising Show correspondent, Lucas Pan. Make that poll, Zika.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford. You can order any new Ford from Two Rivers. They will deliver it to you once it's manufactured. What would your list of demands be for your current employer? Puka says, let me keep working by remote.
That's a fair one. I think that's a complaint a lot of people could identify with. My complaint was less practical. My demand was that I wanted a stocked fridge full of Pellegrino sparkling water when I walked into the studio each and every day.
Yes, mine was a butler. Important to remember, too, that this was voiced by a small minority of that supporter group that did not agree with jumping the gun the way the back line did yesterday.
Yeah, they're out here. Fighting amongst themselves again on the internet. Chris Martell has put out yet another statement from somebody who is no longer a member but used to run the thing. And now is speaking on behalf of members. I don't know. It's too much for me.
It's getting a little too dramatic at this
point.
point.
I can't deal.
Steven says put an open bar in the break room.
Yes, an open bar in the break room would be nice. I'd take a coffee bar. Now, we have a Keurig. We have a coffee maker, one of those like industrial coffee makers in the break room. But like I want like an espresso bar. That'd be great.
Which coach will be the most interesting at SEC Media Day? 67% believe it's Saban, 17% allotted each to Jimbo and Leach. Literally nobody cares about what Brian Kelly has to say, it seems.
Yeah, you may be more spot on with that one than I was. Yeah, Mike Leach should win. Mike Leach is always interesting. If you're doing an interesting competition or contest, Mike Leach should be at the top of the list.
Which is the best quarterback in college football? Or who is the best quarterback in college football? Court says C.J. Stroud of the Ohio State Buckeyes.
You know, he's certainly got the best offense around him. They've got all manner of crazy stud wide receivers. And he's a good player. He's going to be a first-round pick at quarterback, provided that they don't fall off a cliff for some reason in 2022. The list that we're going to spend some time on this tomorrow, because Pro Football Focus put out a list of top 10 college quarterbacks, and the list is laugh out loud bad, like just irrevocably bad. We'll explain more of that tomorrow.
Carter says Hendon Hooker. Brad says Will Levis. No shouts for Bryce Young of Alabama.
Bryce Young, you heard Josh Pate say it earlier, by the way, if you missed any of the show. Josh Pate or Thomas Edwards or any of the great people that we have, all 3 hours of the show available via podcast. Pate said that Bryce Young had to basically be 110% of Alabama's offense for them to do anything last year. So let's not discount Bryce Young.
What is your worst experience in getting your car towed? Rube says, I thought you said towed. Completely different story.
What?
Our buddy Zach at Football Another F Word says, I got towed from my own condo parking lot because the parking lot attendant typed in the letter O instead of 0. What a nightmare.
That's really bad. I got towed one time. Why did this come up? Did you get towed recently?
No, I didn't. You brought it up because our buddy...
Travis Rockhold.
Travis got
at
towed.
Outsider had texted me. He texted me saying he was trying to find a tow truck company to come get his truck or his car because it's dead in his parking garage, or he had some kind of issue in his parking garage. And now he can't move his car. So yes, I got towed Nashville draft weekend because if you recall, not only was the Nashville NFL draft going on, not only was CMA Fest in the background of the Nashville draft, not only was Bonnaroo about 45 minutes to the, south of us in Manchester, but also the Music City Marathon was going on. And I lived in an apartment in the Gulch, and I parked on the street downtown, right by where Pins Mechanical is now by the new Amazon HQ2. They apparently had put signage up saying that we will tow your car if it is parked out on the street. I left my car out. I had to be on the ESPN live stream broadcast set with Mina Kimes, Golick Jr., and Jason Fitz. At a certain time, I awoke to my car being towed the morning of my ESPN situation.
Kyle says my dad got his car towed 5 times in one weekend at Talladega one year.
What?
That will bankrupt you.
Oh, I probably had to pay $200, $300 to get my car out of it was in East Nashville, the repo lot that they had taken it to. 4 or 5 times in a weekend at Talladega?
Yeah.
Just go home, man. Just watch the race at home.
That would be like just getting towed is top 5 just worst things to happen to you just in your day-to-day.
It's vicious. Absolutely vicious. Well, that was drastic.
Those are the polls.
Okay. You sure? All right, that's the show. A lot of fun tomorrow. Coach Mac, Dawn Davenport, Brooklyn Bowl tickets available at 1045thezone.com. Do it and be happy that you did. We just had a couple people DM me on Instagram about that, as a matter of fact, so hope to see a lot of you guys there. New install available in your podcast feeds. Check it out with Greg Cosell and myself. Talk to you tonight on A to Z Sports Prime Time.